Don't do that in the backyard in your pool.
I'm reading both these, right?
All right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council, February 10th, 2020, 6:30 p.m. Can I get a roll call?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Diarnes.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Waite.
Here.
Mayor Toussaint.
Here.
All present, Mayor. Thank you.
Robert, want to listen to the pledge?
Yes, please rise. Place your right hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, the first item we have on the agenda tonight is public communications, written or verbal. I'll start off with the three presentations that we have tonight. I'll be passing on the proclamations to Mayor Pro Tem Robert Clark. Item A is a proclamation for Wings Over Wendy's Veteran Services and the Flat Fenders Club.
Thank you. I always like to stand when I do this, sorry. Okay, in recognition of the Flat Fenders Club and Wings Over Wendy's. Whereas Wings Over Wendy's is a group of veterans, veteran supporters, aviation, military aficionados, and whereas the Flat Fenders and are veterans and non-veterans who have had an affinity for restored military vehicles founded by Dennis Beebe, and whereas the Flat Fenders are widely seen in the Valley's many parades and other civic events, and whereas Wings Over Wendy's organized and supported a visit to the Solvang for 40 veterans with a day filled with fun and adventure by touring the Elverhoy Museum in Solvang and culminating with a hearty lunch at Chomp, and whereas Dennis Beebe, a retired Air Force colonel, and his team of lovingly restored Jeeps and more recently military vehicles, which have seen service from World War II to Afghanistan. And whereas the Flat Fender Club provides 6 Jeeps and the Mokes for the tour. And whereas the Flat Fender Club and Wings Over Wendy's provided a memorable and heartfelt visit to Solvang for the veterans in recognition of their service to our country. Now therefore, I, Robert Clark, and Mayor Ryan Toussaint, on behalf of the Solvang City Council, congratulate Wings Over Wendy's and Dennis Beebe for the support of community events and inspiring others to appreciate the sacrifice on the part of all veterans. Is Dennis here?
And Dennis, I'll let you speak now.
So I guess this crowd's here because they heard about this proclamation. Well, I'd like to say back at you, because I went down and visited this group called Wings Over Wendy's in January. They were here in December. And what an enthusiastic old bunch of guys and their spouses and their supporters. They meet every week at Wendy's, hence the name, Wings Over Wendy's. Then they've been meeting at Wendy's in Woodland Hills for 17 years, every week. And I went down there and visited, and there were over 80 guys and their supporters and their spouses. Amazing, enthusiastic group. And they do have members who have the same span that my club's Jeeps span, from World War II through Afghanistan. Remarkable bunch of people, heroes, really. But they presented me this, so that's what I mean about back at you. I have a plaque here to be presented to the city of Solvang. It was the mayor's idea to, I guess neither one of us heard of this group, Wings Over Wendy's. Who are they? But you decided that we'd do this up big, we'd welcome them, we would give them the great time, and they did have a great time. It was a team effort. The city rented the Mokes from over here at Big Bopper. Aaron Peterson cut us a deal over at Chomp's for lunch. Esther Bates laid out coffee and a what was it? Kringle. She says I don't pronounce it correctly. And you employed two key people from the Visitor Center, Brenda and Jim Ball, who are here tonight. You can tell Brenda's inner outfit as they both were for this. And by the way, during the tour, when you go out and you try to make a left-hand turn, you got a group of a dozen vehicles and you'd like to keep together. Left-hand turn on 246 is a problematic event. Jim went out and stopped traffic twice, taking life in his hands. So it was a team effort. We had Flat Fender Club members and we had VFW members driving all these vehicles. So it was super. And the plaque reads, this is from Wings Over Wendy's, with our greatest appreciation, we honor the city of Solvang for hosting an outstanding tour of the city and your support of veterans. So I'd like to give this to
Awesome. If
a
you come up here,
representative.
we'll get a picture with everyone. Can you grab his, come on up here, please. All right.
There. This is great.
Yes.
Who's taking the picture?
Daryl?
We are now.
Thanks for your patience. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, our second proclamation is to Lieutenant Eddie Sway for his services.
Where is Eddie? There's Eddie.
There he is.
Okay. In recognition of 34 years of committed service, whereas Eddie Sway started with the Sheriff's Office on February 10th, 1986 as a Level 1 Reserve Officer, and whereas during his career he worked in every area in the county in both North and South patrols, and whereas in 2002 Eddie was assigned to Solvang as a special duty on patrol, and whereas in 2003 he was assigned as a Buellton Community Resource Deputy, whereas in 2005 Eddie was promoted to sergeant and thus returned to Solvang on patrol, and in 2015 he again was promoted, this time to lieutenant, and in such a role he managed the countywide Judicial Service Bureau, and whereas in 2018 Eddie was assigned as a station commander or the Central Station and returned to Solvang as Chief of Police, whereas Eddie Sway has had a distinguished law enforcement career of approximately 34 years of service with the Sheriff's Office and has served most of this time serving the residents of the Santa Ynez Valley. Now therefore, I, Robert Clark, and Mayor Ryan Toussaint, on behalf of the Solvang City Council, congratulate Eddie Sway on his many years of dedicated and committed service to the Santa Ynez Valley, and collectively, we recognize his contribution to making the Valley a better place to live, work, and play. Thank you, Eddie.
Sure.
Well, I'd like to thank Mr. Mayor and City Council and City staff and the community of Solvang. I fell in love with Solvang. I worked here as a deputy, as a corporal, as a community resource deputy, as a sergeant, as a lieutenant, of the chief of police for the city. It's been my pleasure to work for the community. I always feel that my job is a public servant, and I work for the community, and that's been how I've done my career. I've had a great career. It's a little ironic that today I get this on the 10th of February, which John Carpenter swore me in on February 10th. Also happens to be my mother's birthday, so it was easy to remember. And also today, just ironically, that I had a meeting with the retirement board, and I filed my retirement paperwork today with the county. So, thank you very much. It's been
And do you mind, quick picture?
to show your proclamation?
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
There we go.
What's the code?
I'm not going to scream it out.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll put it back in for you next time. Thank you so much for your service.
All right, and then next we have the presentation of Certificate of Honor, SYV Benevolent Order of Elks Lodge, number 2640.
Good evening. My name is Robert Ramirez. I'm the exalted ruler of Lodge 2640 of Sentinez Valley Elks. Mayor Toussaint, Councilwoman Karen Waite, Councilman Daniel Johnson, Robert Clark, and Chris DeJarnis. I proudly present the City of Solvang the Certificate of Honor for properly flying the American flag every day, all year, into Solvang Park on this day, February 11th, 2020.
Awesome. Can I get a picture?
You got it?
This is for you guys. Got that. It's hard for me to keep smiling.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, a lot of proclamations and awards tonight. Now we'll move on to normal public comment. I have several speaker slips. First speaker is Kevin Murphy, followed by Ed Skitt.
I'd like to thank you all, Mayor Toussaint and the city council members. I'd like to thank you for sponsoring us, and I'm here on behalf of the SYV Western Heritage Foundation to present this picture of the rodeo that we put on last September, and it has your Solvang banner in the background. We tried to get that in there, and anyways, by doing so, you've allowed us to not only put together this rodeo, and but also with our foundation, we're able to give back to youth organizations in the valley. So we would just like to present this to you, and thanks, and thank you for everything. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Ed Skitt,
Thank you, Kevin.
followed by, I think, Leslie Ohms. Might be mispronouncing that one. Ohms. So, and Ed, just so you know, we're already going to be polling item number E. So what I'll do is you put in for 2 items,
Yes.
but I'll poll your name again for item E, so that way it's consistent. Does that work?
Item E was the,
Item E is the South Alisal Road pavement
okay, that is being pulled?
Yes.
Okay, item F was the.
The library.
Library. I think that the item F should be pulled also to be put on a regular agenda format. It's discussion of funding of the library and the contract with the Goleta system. The library is a very important part of our community, and it should be an agendized item where the public can make more input than just on a consent calendar item. And that's my thoughts for today. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Leslie Ohms. I'll let you correct me when you get, followed by David Rasmussen.
I respectfully request, Mayor Toussaint and council members, that you would allow Terry Harmon to speak before me.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you. My husband's handing out some information for each of you to have. My name is Terry Harmon, and I am the owner of the building called Frederick's Court, corner of Alisal and Mission. When I purchased the building in 2017, a few years ago, the building was partially leased and not in the best shape. I spent a lot of money restoring it and doing the type of extensive maintenance that the previous owners did not do, some of which you don't notice, and some of what you do with new landscaping, fix the clock, refurbished courtyard and fountain area. Today, Frederick's Court is fully leased with my next project at some point to get it painted. Besides the windmills, Frederick's Court, along with the other buildings, is one of the most photographed buildings in town due to its very charming and Danish storybook style, and because of where it's located, it's one of the first Danish-style buildings when arriving in town from the south. Now, when I bought the building, one of our tenants, Kenny Esco, started acting strange and in some cases very abusive, both towards my building manager and myself. He didn't follow the contractual agreement he signed with the previous owners, nor the release he signed in 2018 with me. Some of the building rules he didn't follow would be our limited parking spaces inside the courtyard are for building customers. Tenants are not allowed to park there except for quick loading and unloading. He didn't care and would park whenever and would do so for hours despite the warnings, which is a violation of the lease agreement and building rules that he agreed to. Tenants lease the inside of the spaces that they lease, not the outside. It took us a couple of years to just get him and all his stuff he stored on the back side of his shop back inside. Many arguments ensued with them, and lease guarantor
Mr. Mayor,
Christine.
can I interject really quickly, please? I don't think that this is an appropriate platform to say derogatory things about a member of our community.
I understand, but all due respect, he's done the same to me here.
It's public comments, Chip. If there's, you know,
I'm okay with that.
I would urge you, it's public comment, give her 3 minutes.
yeah.
Thank you. And just to let you know, I was been in bed all weekend sick with the fever, and I'm here today with this information because that's how important it is to me. And I don't mean to be disparaging, but as you'll see through the handout, there's a lot of things that will contradict what he said in the past. All right, so there's a lot of decorative pots and plants in the courtyard of our building, and when I was in the escrow phase of purchasing the building, the pots were displayed around the courtyard. Then a while later, he removed most of them to the front of his store without my permission and claimed they were his, which just by coincidence matched all the pots and plants inside the courtyard. He, of course, had no proof of purchase despite our request to see it. We had them moved back, but he just kept moving them without our permission, posting flags and other stuff inside, which is a lie and a theft of our property. He was told to get his numerous overbearing large decorations displayed in front of his shop back into the shop, but he didn't. This past October, I personally counted 11 large Halloween decorations that he had placed in front of his shop and wasn't even a part of the Scarecrow Fest. See the exhibit and the proof. All right, while watching the November 25th council meeting video online at the 1 hour and 14-minute mark, he spoke and slandered my name by claiming he was having landlord issues and that I, Terry Harmon, was evicting him because of all the Christmas decorations. We've been trying to evict him for months, and I put a copy of the eviction notice, and you will see that there's no mention at all of any Halloween or Christmas decorations, so you were lied to. He has threatened us, which you will see in those handouts. Verbally abused my management team to the extent that one of the husbands wants to personally chat with them, and he was heard telling people that I'm not the owner of Frederick's Court and to just ignore me. He designed a flyer. Take a look at that flyer that he had up on his wall, outside the window, I should say. Threatening to put in his storefront windows. I understand that he did. And then he said he was going to call the media and report us as anti-American. All right, have you ever been inside the courtyard of Frederick's Court? There's 7 flags proudly displayed up at the top, and I make sure that they are replaced when they are tattered. We take very good care of our flags. So the reason why I'm here is you need to kind of know what you're dealing with this guy, because I understand that he has applied for an encroachment permit to allow more stuff outside of his shops. Now, if you grant one encroachment permit, it's a slippery slope, and you know that there's going to be other people want to do it, and then we have a very sloppy-looking town that might look like a little bit more of a third world country instead of the beautiful, charming city of Solvang. You have issued as a city 2 different notices last July for him to get his stuff back in.
I'm giving her a little extra time because we interrupted her, but I do
Thank
need
you.
you to wrap it up very
I'm
soon.
just about done. You have issued 2 different requests for him to get his stuff back inside, and he has not done anything about it. On December 14th, he was.
So Terry, I'm sorry, but with that last thing in comment, I just wanted to, I still gotta keep everyone to 3 minutes, and if I start this tonight, it'll,
Simply put, let me end with this. Simply put, he has and has been a bully to all of us with his lying threats, theft, and verbal abuse. You have all the proof that you need in those handouts. And I brought this here to respectfully request that you do not grant that encroachment. If anything, it should be taken away. Anything having to do with anything outside the building, and such a decision, I would hope, would be made with me involved as the owner. And we've already talked about that. So that's what this is, and I hate to be so negative, but I've had it with this guy. He has just been just abusive to everybody.
Thank
So,
you.
respectfully submitted, you have it. Thank you.
Leslie Ohms?
Mayor Toussaint and council members, thank you for allowing me to speak. I would also like to speak to this encroachment permit. Foot traffic in Solvang can be very heavy at times, and with store products spilling out of storefronts, this competes with sidewalk space and creates an unpleasant ambling and sightseeing experience, not to mention a possible hazard to pedestrians. I have been to many third world countries, and in fact, I leave for another one this Sunday to Kampala, Uganda. I don't take these trips as a tourist, but nonetheless, I will expect to see the exact thing in Kampala, as I have seen in other third world countries to which I have traveled, which is products and wares displayed outside of storefronts. This look and practice is shabby, unappealing, and dangerous to visitors and residents alike. It is degrading to our beautiful Solvang village. I encourage you to vote against this permit. Thank you.
David Rasmussen? Followed by Steve Battaglia.
Mayor Toussaint and City Council, I was involved in the writing of the first sign regulations when Solvang became a city. And as I walk around town lately, I'm starting to see some things come back that we were able to get rid of. Things like encroachments on the sidewalk, be it off-premise signs or merchandise. And I would encourage you, we've rewritten the sign ordinance 4 times, and each time we've said no sidewalk, no signs on the sidewalks, no merchandise on the sidewalks. And I would encourage you to enforce those regulations. Thank you.
Steve Battaglia, followed by Robert Stokes.
Mayor, council members, thank you for this time. My name's Steve Battaglia. I have Battaglia Commercial Real Estate. I do a lot of leasing in town of retail and office space. And I'm just speaking out against offering encroachment permits to tenants to do business outside of their premises. I think that's a bad precedence to set to allow them to either display merchandise, decor, or actually conduct business outside of their premises. I'm very protective of the city of Solvang. It's got a beautiful Danish community, beautiful look, and it's welcoming to visitors, and I would not want to see that harmed. So encourage you guys to not consider encroachment permits for businesses doing business outside their premises. Thank you.
Thank you. Chip, so that's the last of the public speaker slips I have about this encroachment issue. We don't have this item on the agenda tonight. Can you just explain what this is? Because it's not here, so I don't know what this.
Mr. Mayor, and maybe I can do this kind of as a public service announcement. The city does not allow people to do business on the sidewalk. In fact, we have lately been following up very closely to make sure that people are not hawking and otherwise vending outside on the sidewalk. I'm not aware of any application for this person to do hawking, vending, or keeping merchandise, and I don't think that we actually would be issuing an encroachment permit for that. as I understand the application that's been presented to the city, and this is something that's actually controlled by the Public Works Department, so it doesn't normally come to your council. The application is for flower pots that are in front of 2 stores. As your city attorney, here's my public service announcement. If people are going to have flower pots or other things on the sidewalk, I'd like them to come in and get encroachment permits, which are in fact required by the city. And there are good reasons that the city doesn't have people have flower pots and other things that I should be careful in saying this. There is a requirement for flower pots and other things to get encroachment permits on the sidewalk. The city does have and has had since 1988 in its design guidelines a provision that says the use of flowers, especially planted in pots, boxes, window boxes, hanging boxes, and hanging baskets, is encouraged. So you actually encourage people to have those flower pots out in front of their stores. And if you walk around, I did today, I would kind of call Solvang the city of pots because they're all over the place in the TRC.
Plural, right?
Plural pots, many, many, many pots with many, many, many pretty flowers in the very many pretty pots. You want to require people generally to have encroachment permits if you're going to let them have things on the sidewalk. I talked to the Public Works Director today. He said that historically means back in the 1980s when you first began to encourage people to have flowers, including in planters and pots. People used to get encroachment permits. And so many of the ones, like along Alisal, I think like the ones in front of Mr. Rasmussen's, which are in more formal planter boxes, I suspect those actually got encroachment permits. More recently, apparently perhaps over the last 20-ish years, people have not actually been coming in and getting encroachment permits for their many, many, many pots. And so to the extent that this is about flowers in flower pots, again, we would like people to come in and go through the formal process. If this is merchandising, putting things out on the street to sell, going outside and calling customers, grabbing customers, dragging customers into stores, doing things like that, that is a priority that the city has to stop. And so I want to make that distinction. We can provide you with any more report on this if you'd like. But again, as I understand, the application is for flowers in flower pots, and I will look to the Public Works Director for anything beyond that. Thanks.
Thank you. Robert Stokes.
Good evening, Mayor Toussaint and the City Council. My name is Robert Stokes. I'm president of the Wheels and Windmills Car Show, a nonprofit organization. For the last 15 years, our organization has been allowed to have the car show in the city of Solvang the last Saturday of August. Our organization is staffed by a local group of volunteers and families who donate their time planning and putting on the car show as a way to give back to our community. We also decided when we started this, whenever possible, we would use local merchants to provide services to help us put on the show. The popularity of our show is due in part to the beautiful backdrop of Solvang and the many shops and restaurants for the participants to enjoy before, during, and after the event. The car show attracts participants and car clubs from all over northern, central, and southern California. We have also had people come from many states to participate in our event. Our 2018 event was even filmed by the internationally televised TV show called My Classic Car, and the episode can still be viewed on YouTube today. The car show attracts around 10,000 spectators each year, and there are more than 50 businesses or individuals, most of them local, that provide sponsorship money, raffle prizes, or services to put on the event. The proceeds from the car show have helped many local and national charities over the years. Some of the charities include the San Ynez Valley Community Aquatic Foundation, the Solvang Friendship House, Senior Center, and Elementary School, Sunnyfields Park, Happy Endings Animal Sanctuary, O'Holland Animals Rescue, Buellton Senior Center, Zaka Center Preschool, and the Progeria Foundation, and many others. In 2008, the car show began raffling off a new donated V8 engine to provide funds to help keep the San Ynez Valley and Santa Maria High School auto shop programs in operation. In the 15 years that the car show has been staged in Solvang, over $375,000 has been raised and donated to support the charities and the high school auto shop programs. The Wheels and Windmills Car Show organization is proud to have been able to put on 15 successful events in Solvang. Just some background. The reason that we are approaching you tonight is to request that we be given the go-ahead to continue putting on the event in Solvang. We have already submitted our permit application and application fee for this year. Due to the event approval changes that have taken place since last year, we are a bit unsure of who we need to get the go-ahead approval from. We were told to contact IDK, which we have done, but are still unclear to this being the right direction for the approval process of our show. It takes us 6 months to plan and organize an event of this size, and the longer we have to wait to begin that process jeopardizes our ability to put on the quality event that we have done in the past. Thank you for your time and attention to this request.
Thank you.
Respectfully submitted. I also have a copy here for each of you so that you can have it to read.
And I'll ask Zena during the city manager report to give a little update on that process. So,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Brenda Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I have just a few words, and I'll try to keep it very short. As you know, I worked for the Solvang CVB for 13 years as a digital media marketing director and as operations manager. And I only bring that up because my husband said I should be proud of the fact that I developed those things and made them as successful as they were. So successful that the city of Solvang decided to pursue the gathering of those assets. Now on to my January report. We had 4,457 walk-ins in January, and we see our job at the Visitor Center as being instrumental in encouraging people to stay longer in Solvang. Also, we want to encourage them to return. We do our best to share with them how much there is to do in Solvang, so that they'll see there is a need to come back. 7 of our staff have now completed the excellent Solvang history lesson that Esther has at the Elverhoy Museum. At the Solvang Visitor Center, we share the visit SYV, the San Ynez Valley Visitor Guide, and about 24% of the people coming into the Visitor Center walk out with that visitor guide. Of course, the really young ones just want to take a picture of the visitor guide or the map inside and go away with that. So the message is getting out. We continue to pick up the visitor guides at the built-in storage 3 or 4 times a month. Several of the hotels also come to the visitor center to pick up those guides. The guide is not being mailed out any longer, with the exception of the few that my husband and I have mailed out. I would like to encourage the city to consider still mailing those guides, even though it is available digitally. The reason is a lot of groups want those guides to share with their groups, and that they can all sit around and decide how they want to plan out their visits. This is also our target audience. It's always in Solvang's best interest to bring groups here because that brings fewer cars. The guide We also hand out the Solvang Chamber map to 68% of the visitors who enter the visitor center. We've done our best as the Solvang Visitor Center to stay out of politics. We want to be a promoter of Solvang, the Solvang businesses. We just want to be a cheerful, pleasant place for people to want to come and visit. We change out the decorations every month. Right now we're in Valentine's. I welcome you to come in and take a look. And I just want to say thank you. We've enjoyed, we're still enjoying, we're still pursuing everything we can. We'd like to pursue a lot more. We'd like to do some more improvements to the Solvang Visitor Center. Again, I say thank you for the opportunity, and let me know how I can help. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Michael Baker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Baker, CEO of United Boys and Girls Clubs. Happy to be here as always and wanted to give you an update. Our goal, as I've told you before, we have our newest club here in Solvang on the campus of the elementary school. And our goal was to reach 20 kids. We are now up to 87 children enrolled in Solvang. And we are expecting to surpass 100 kids probably by the end of this month. Pretty quickly here, we'll be over 100 kids, and our goal is to reach any child that needs the Boys and Girls Club. So again, as I tell each and every one of you, certainly would encourage you to come down and see the program in action. But also, if you know of a child that's in need of Boys and Girls Club services, a place to go after school, please contact us. You can certainly reach me, and anybody watching this, you can reach me at our office at 805-681-1315, and that's 805-681-1315. Please feel free to give me a call if there's a child that you know is in need of services at the Boys and Girls Club. And again, it's the bottom line for us is we just want to serve kids. So it's not about the funding. We'll figure that out. But the kids that need the services the most, we'll make sure we're there to serve them. So again, I want to thank you and encourage you to come down and see it. And it's very nice for me to say this in front of him, but there's a gentleman in the crowd here who is a longtime supporter of the Boys and Girls Clubs, grew up in the Boys and Girls Club, and is now helping to lead the city of Goleta, and that's Mr. Roger Seves. Roger, very proud that you're an alum of Boys and Girls Club, so thank you for everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes. Sorry. That concludes the public portion comment of the agenda. Zena will move on to your city manager's report, and I'll just ask here if you could just address a little bit about where we're at with event approvals and that process.
Right. Good evening, Council. So with the event approvals, as you would know that you just recently approved a contract with IDK to be the manager of events for the City of Solvang. This is a transitionary period, and we expect that with the next agenda, IDK will be back here with us talking about the progress that they have made to date, and they are actively working with staff, transitioning the approval processes from city staff to IDK at the same time as establishing policies and procedures where it's really clear about how the approvals come together and how IDK and the city staff will work through these processes. So I would expect that at the next agenda item, IDK would have some clarity for everybody to discuss, how do we address the events that have already been submitted, sort of grandfather those, how do we move forward, and what will be the next steps for everybody to be very clear about the process going forward with IDK.
And is there any email address that that people can know to email in, so that way we're compiling a list, or IDK is then kind of in communication?
So I would suggest that people can email events@solvangusa.com. That's now managed by IDK. That's the solvangusa.com website. That's for our marketing and tourism historically. And they have created this new email, events@solvangusa.com.
Perfect. Thank you.
So moving on to city manager report and advanced calendar. I wanted to start by addressing this very important subject of coronavirus, and we have had some residents asking, what's the city doing about this? And actually, the city doesn't have much jurisdiction, but we do have on the website now some information to the health departments that actually deal with this. So the closest health department in hierarchy of dealing with this important health issue is the Santa Barbara County. So Santa Barbara County now has a link to information that's being constantly updated with the most updated information on cases in the United States, in the state of California, and in Santa Barbara County. As you can see, there's been 12 cases in the United States confirmed so far, 6 in California, and 0 in Santa Barbara County. And so then we also have a reference to the California Department of Public Health, and they are actually a jurisdiction that can manage, they manage the, people coming in and coming out of the airports in Los Angeles and San Francisco, which are international airports. And they have made this specific statement that I have here, and I'll actually just go ahead and read it, that says, it's a question, should public events be canceled? So basically, what's the level of a warning here? And their official statement right now is the Public Health Department is not recommending the cancellation of public events at this time. There is no evidence of sustained person-to-person transmission of the virus in the United States. There have been 2 instances of person-to-person transmission. One occurred in Chicago and another in San Benito County, California. Both instances involved a close household contact. So I would encourage people to go to our website and to monitor the Santa Barbara County website as well as the state, who are really the health departments responsible for our jurisdiction, and we would be closely working with them and monitoring any information. But as a city, we don't have airports, we don't have any way of controlling traffic of who comes in and who comes out of the city of Solvang. So we are working with those 2 jurisdictions as our health departments. Now, happy and proud to announce once again that the city of Solvang is working a lot more proactively this year to put together the State of the City event. The city is actually managing the program, working with IDK as our events coordinator. IDK will be taking care of the logistics and will be taking reservations and answering any information, but the city itself has put together the program for State of the City. It will be an expanded event this year on February 28th. So the goal is to have the event free to all residents of Solvang, to where we can invite everybody in the city. There's actually going to be a mailing going out later this week to all residents and businesses in the city of Solvang with this flyer that provides information on date, time, and how to reserve if somebody wants to come to the paid event. Both events are open to the public. They will both be duly noticed by the Brown Act. And the first one takes place in the morning at 10:30 at the Memorial or at the Veterans Hall. And that is a really an appropriate venue for if a large number of people want to come and hear about the state of the city, what the city has accomplished, and what is the city's next initiatives. We welcome everybody from the city of Solvang to be there and to join us. The theme of the presentations for the State of the City this year is Spirit of Solvang, History and Vision. And so the flyer, and we have some flyers here actually available for anybody that's here in person to pick up. The flyer states who will be the speakers, and we have Monique Limon joining us. She's our state assemblywoman. She will be speaking at the 12:30 session. That session will be you can purchase a lunch for $35 if you would like to and have a seated arrangement, but it will also be available to the public at large. It's open, there's just potentially not enough space to fit too many people, so we'll be looking at some kind of arrangement of having a screen outside so everybody can be privy to that meeting as well. Monique's presentation will be followed by Esther from our Everhoy Museum, who will be talking about the spirit of Solvang and the history. And that would be followed by Rene from the Copenhagen House, by Cosmond, who is our economic consultant for the city, and Jim Knell, who will talk about probably the largest or one of the largest project that's going on in the city right now, which is the PAR building. So once again, welcome everybody to the State of the City. We hope to see all of the Solvang residents at either the morning event or the lunch event for those presentations.
And just to clarify, both of these will be streamed and available online.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, we will be recording both of these meetings, so they will be available online for everybody to see live during the meetings or to view at their leisure at any time thereafter. Just a quick reminder, once again, that we have this information now online, the amnesty program for the building permit. We have had a few success cases from the businesses, but we have not received a lot of applications right now from the residential community. So just trying to spread the word that it's here and available. The amnesty program is right now through June 30 of this fiscal year. And what it does is allows building projects that have not been permitted to come in and not have any penalties, and city staff is prepared to walk them through the process and get them permitted. So we welcome everybody in. We will also be mailing through a local newspaper little flyers as well, so we get as many people as we can to know about this program and be able to come in and get permitted at the city. Now moving on to the advance calendar. February 24th, we'll have a few busy agendas coming up. We will kick off by talking and having a presentation on the organizational assessment. That's a study looking at internal city operations and how do we most effectively and efficiently operate and deliver for the community. That will be part of the financial process as well and will inform the next financial plan development. As I mentioned earlier today, IDK will be here with us to talk about the events permitting processes and any other updates that they have to date. That discussion then will be followed by the recommendations to restructure the BAR, Board of Architectural Review, and also some recommendation on the Planning Commission structure. The subcommittee consisting of Mayor Toussaint and Councilmember Waite have met on the BAR and have made their recommendations, so staff will present that at the next meeting. Now, golden elements at 1650 Copenhagen business license hearing. This has been something that many residents and visitors actually have been bringing up to staff attention, especially over the holiday season. And the city has reviewed it has to deal with aggressive marketing of merchandise and essentially violating the no hawking ordinance. So the city has contacted the owner, the city has notified them, and the city has issued them a notice that this business license hearing will occur on February 24th, at which point the council has the authority to revoke that license or take any other actions. The next item is a city attorney project scope direction. As you would recall, you have approved modest budget for the next 6 months for city attorney services for ongoing services only. So this item will be a presentation from the city attorney looking for direction on any projects that the council would like the city attorney to work on through the rest of the fiscal year. The next two items are just public hearings that are required for the year. Measure A is our Measure A countywide funding for projects, and then Skid Mesa LLMD is an annual assessment for the Skid Mesa for their services on landscaping. March 9th is a rather lengthy agenda at this point. This is preliminary, some things may change, but what we are looking at is development review policies and procedures. So we are onboarding, planning, I would say director in a way. I'm acting in that capacity right now, but this is a professional planner who actually has served in planning director for the city of Solvang some number of years ago, a couple of planning directors before, who will help us work through some of the development review policies and procedures. As we review our municipal code and our current processes, we are realizing that we need to streamline that process and make it very clear for staff and for our customers and residents and businesses on how we would review planning development process, and that will inform the permitting software implementation, which will be the next phase to actually utilize technology to also help us be a lot more efficient. Building amnesty update, we'll come back with our results to date on how many applications we've got and what are our results. ADU ordinance will be coming back from the Planning Commission, that we will be going to them at the next meeting to do some limited enforcement that we can under the new state laws, and that will be coming to council for approval. Communications RFP and information technology recommendations will be a secondary step from recommendations and policy direction that you give us on February 24th under the organizational assessment. And then we will have Cosmont come back with an update on their progress for economic development and the economic development subcommittee recommendations. We will be looking at formally adopting events and permitting policy and procedures with IDK and the city. And given your direction later today on addressing law enforcement and some of the residents' complaints or issues, desires on the traffic enforcement, we will work with the Sheriff's Department and with our city staff on developing the recommendations for different techniques for traffic calming policy. And we'll be seeking direction from you. With that, I will turn it over back to council for our regular agenda.
So I'll just ask you. I think you earlier mentioned that you wanted to pull item E from the consent agenda. Could you just?
Yes, I would like to request that that item should be pulled. When we did the research, we recognized that the cost of potentially including bike lanes was significantly higher than we originally anticipated. So the recommendation is actually not to move forward with including full-on bike lanes at the Alisa Road. But the way that the recommendation reads in the staff report actually requires your direction. So I would like to pull that and receive your direction.
So with that, we'll move on to item number 3, the consent agenda. Item E will pull. The remaining items, is there a motion to approve the remainder, or does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? I'll make the motion to approve all items on the consent agenda with the exception of E. We're going to pull that one.
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Diarnes,
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes.
That motion carries 5-0, Mayor. Thank you.
Item E.
I would actually like to invite our public engineer, Matt, to come up. As I mentioned, this was an item that had some interest in potentially looking at adding full-on bike lanes at the South Alisa Road, but once Public Works has done their work, working up the estimates, it would take us about $1.7 million in additional dollars that would have to come from general fund towards this project to achieve that. So the staff's recommendation based on the financial impact of it at this point is not to proceed with this project.
Okay. Matt?
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Toussaint and council members. Matt Vanderlinden, your Public Works Director and City Engineer. So I think our acting city manager kind of summarized it, but essentially we've taken a look at the additional costs to add back in bike lanes, and the costs have come in higher than originally anticipated. So we're looking for, well, staff's recommending that we don't proceed with the bike lanes or proceed with adding bike lanes to the project. But we're looking for the city council's direction. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
And it wasn't, just to clarify, it wasn't just bike lanes. I think there's also concerns over the widening of the road, or widening the road a little bit more, which would.
Yeah. So what happens is if you start widening the road beyond a certain amount, there are actually 17 culverts that are drainage pipes that go under the road. And the culvert it starts with and ends with a head wall, and all of those head walls have to be extended, and the pipes extended, and a new head walls put in, and all kinds of grading along that shoulder area to widen the road. And then in addition, so that's quite a big expense with 17 culverts having to be extended and the head wall, reinforced concrete head walls and so forth, plus the grading and everything. And then in addition, there's a few locations where there are slopes that come up close to the shoulder of the road, and to widen the road to fit full bike lanes would require a lot of grading. And in some locations, we'd have to put in small or even medium-sized retaining walls along those slopes, because at the property line, there's a ranch road. And so if we graded like a typical 2-to-1 slope back, that would go beyond the property line and onto the private property and affect the existing ranch road. So it kind of snowballs when you try to widen the road. And so the costs escalate quite a bit just to widen it a few feet.
Okay. Are there any questions on the staff report?
Yes.
Gary?
Yeah, so I remember this discussion pretty clearly, and my recollection is that we weren't actually going to go for the bike lanes because it would cause all of this expense, and that we had discussed throwing down sharrows instead, because we didn't want to put the money into it, because we also knew that the county was not going to meet us on the other end. They didn't have any interest in improving Alisal Road beyond where we would end for the city of Solvang. So we, I believe, decided that sharrows would be okay. So my question for you, because those aren't lanes, it's just a notice that you're sharing the road with bicycles. They're, pictures and arrows on the road. Would that widening of the road just to throw down sharrow signage on the road?
No, it doesn't. Is this on? Yeah, so that's a good question. So the
Just for the public's benefit, can you explain what a sharrow is?
Sure. So sharrows are you see them around in a few places. There's a few places in Buellton that have them. Basically, what it is a pair of two chevron symbols, so like little upside down sort of V-shaped symbols, painted on the pavement with a bicycle symbol. And so it's painted, it's pavement markings on the road in the middle of the lane, alerting, along with signage, alerting drivers that bicyclists they're always allowed to share the road anyway, but this is to alert drivers that, hey, to be more cautious and be looking out more for bicyclists. Per the vehicle code, bicycles and pedestrians can use the roadway legally just as vehicles. But those sharrows are markings on the pavement, the chevron markings and the bicycle symbol to alert drivers to be more cautious and look out for bicyclists. But the engineering services contract that the City Council awarded in November includes basically very minor safety widening. Most of the road is about 23 feet wide. There's a few places where it's a little bit wider, but to fit standard 12-foot lanes and have it proper edge striping, we're going to widen the road from 23 feet to 26 feet, and then add the bicycle signage and the sharrows, which are the pavement markings. And so that's the contract that was awarded in November. So that's how we've been proceeding, but there was an interest to consider the possibility of adding the lanes, so that's why this item was brought back.
Okay. Thank you. Ed Skit, I believe, wanted to speak on this item. The staff recommendation, I believe, is to not approve anything further. So do you still want to speak on this item? No. Okay. With
Thanks,
that, we'll
Matt.
take this back to the council for discussion and action.
So then where are we on just throwing down the sharrows?
It's in the current plan of what's been previously approved. So you already approved that project that Matt just described.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so you can take no action, and the bicycle signage and sharrows will remain in the project.
Thank you.
Would you like to move staff recommendation?
I would like to move staff recommendation.
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Diarnes,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes.
That motion carries 5-0, Mayor. Thank you.
On to the regular business agenda. We have item number 4, Lot 72, policy direction. Can I get a staff report?
Mr. Mayor, I'll volunteer, I guess. Zena and I put this together. And I'm going to start by noting that back in 2018, the council at that time had a goal-setting session in the spring of 2018 at which City Manager Vidro brought an item to the council for its consideration as a goal at a goal setting that was actually facilitated by next city manager Rick Hayden. And one of the items at that time was specifically to revisit this lease and for the council to have a discussion and for staff to go back and meet with the trust and revisit some of the items in the lease. So that's what we are actually now recommending that you again direct us to do. I don't know why but apparently your staff then decided not to follow the goal direction that the council gave, that the 2018 council gave. Jumping forward, because I think that there has been a lot of discussion apparently in the public. We've received a lot of comments from neighbors, which seem to have some misunderstanding about Lot 72. It's probably not a surprise, given the very long time that the city has owned the property. But so I put together a little history here, and it's very brief, even though the history is much more longer and more complicated. But the city was actually looking at Lot 72 back in, again, the late 80s as a possible place for a community center. There used to be events apparently on Lot 72, including, I thought it was interesting to find that Peter, Paul, and Mary, the 1960s rock icons, had their 30th anniversary concert there at Lot 72. The then owners weren't apparently interested in having that as a community center, so they came up with a different plan. Part of the plan included the fact that in the early 1990s there was a vote in the city to remove what had been called the Elverhoy bypass. There was going to be a road that was going to run from down by Alamo Pintado around Lot 72 to come out somewhere by Elverhoy so that people could get to downtown Solvang without going on Highway 246. And so the citizens voted on an initiative to get rid of that from the general plan, so that ended up being taken out of the general plan. The owners of the property then came up with their own specific plan, and their specific plan involved essentially dividing the property into three pieces. One piece had 66 new houses and 2 houses at the bottom of the hill that were already existing. Second area of the property was what I'll call a buffer area for the new homes. It's there now, you can see it. It's the area along Alisol where there are some trails with big signs that say don't ride your bicycle here, and then another area that continues around the homes. And the third area is what became Lot 72. And Lot 72 was essentially going to be a park for the city as part of this overall plan to add 66 new houses and 2 existing houses. The subdivision occurred, Lot 72 got created, the houses got built, the park never happened. And the city, there's a stack like this of plans that were done between 1992 to 2007. There were advisory committees. There were many, many, many versions of park plans with baseball fields, soccer fields, hot dog stands, other things. Lots of concern by parts of the community. And finally, back in 2007, Mr. Vidro brought an item forward to the council and asked the council if it wanted to continue working on the park plans. I jumped over the fact that you actually paid for somebody to prepare a draft EIR. The Planning Commission had recommended a plan. The EIR had been presented to the council in, I think, 2004, and yet between 2004 and 2007, and I'm going to quote Mr. Vidro, the council took no action on the EIR, and it remains today in limbo, not certified and not abandoned either. Instead, and partially as a result of both budgetary concerns and opposition to some suggested uses at Lot 72, the City Council directed staff to pursue a potential sale of Lot 72 to a nonprofit for use as a park in conjunction with other similar uses in the vicinity. So in 2007, the city began discussions, negotiations with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. That ended up with a ground lease. There's a copy of the ground lease in your packet. The lease was a 55-year lease under which the trust paid $660 for the 55-year lease. There are some things I find interesting, and again, I wasn't there in 2007, but The exhibit for the lease actually shows the city was contemplating building a large parking lot, and the lease provides that the city could build a large parking lot on the property. It actually is a big part of the property adjacent to the Village Collection property. I've seen other exhibits that show that that parking lot could have been for between 300 and as many as 800 cars. I don't know that that's anyone's interest at this point. It also provided that the trust would go through a process by which the trust would decide what would get developed on the property, and it really doesn't have a process for the city to be involved in that process. And then it also provides that the trust can assign the lease to the California State Department of Parks. And I think that that was probably a popular idea in 2007. I don't know if it has as much popularism today as it did then. More recently, you all looked at and ended up having the drone show on Lot 72, and there has been discussion over the years of other special event use of the property. That actually is one of the two uses that the property was to be used for when it was originally transferred to the city. Again, park and special event uses, but it's very clear that the special event uses were only if those special events were approved by the city council. And so I would have thought that probably should have been clear in the lease. It's actually not even provided for in the lease. When we approached the trust, and I should probably also mention, we'd been having some wonderful conversations with Tom and Leanne, who manage adjacent trust property. There's an overall area around Lot 72 that's made up of property owned by the Mission, property owned by the Trust for Historic Preservation, and property owned by the State Parks Department, which all includes a portion of the historic Mission property, including the Mission Mills area. And that has been seen for many years as a place for an overall historic park. We began some discussions with just the people who were on the ground here, who were absolutely great in kind of sharing the property with us, showing us around, talking about what they do on the property. We then began some discussions just of the overall use of the area with other people from the trust. You may recall the council back, I think in September, approved a project that Public Works brought forward. You spent about $60,000 cleaning up a bunch of brush and stuff that had been deposited there by flood control, in part to make sure that the public could access the property, could use it for trail use, and also to address some potential flooding concerns with the stuff that had been just essentially dumped along the creek there. So you began these discussions several months ago. We talked about the trust coming and doing a presentation to you about, what's going on. It's been over 13 years since this lease was developed. We're still hoping that that will happen. Apparently there is a state parks committee, though, that has to review that presentation before they can give you details about it. So that's something else. We don't really know the detail on that, but what we thought we should do is, before we began discussions about what we see as problems with the lease, including problems that came up with a difference clearly in our understanding as your staff about the provisions of the lease and the city's rights in it, and the trust and their belief that you need to enter into a rental agreement with the trust before you can use the property, that we should bring this to the council and get your confirmation that, again, as you directed in 2018, you do still want your staff to go back, talk to the trust, revisit some of the lease issues, and then come back to you. Zena, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's a great report, Mr. Attorney. I would just like to once again come back to the recommendation. What we emphasize here is a policy direction for essentially maintain local control. It's the city's property, and really the conversations and the direction that you're given is for staff, myself, and the city attorney to work with the trust to maintain the agreement terms to focus on the local control.
Are there any questions on the staff report? Okay, that will go to public comment. I have Rich Conduit as our first speaker, followed by Renee Conduit. Chip, these are for you.
Evening. Rich Condit. I actually live on the road that, at the end of the road that serves Lot 72. Chip, I got to tell you, that's a very nice presentation you put in your favor. I don't recognize anything, almost anything out of that historically that happened actually. I think we've been hearing rumors for months now about how Lot 72 is going to be changed, the use is going to be changed, horses are going to be there, bicycles are going to be there. The city wants to take the lot back from the trust. 10 years ago, we went through this whole process, and it was very volatile, very time-consuming, went through, obviously, another council. But when Chip was talking about this, he mentioned the number of different things different councils have wanted to do on that property. And because of that, what happened with Lot 72 is it was pushed to a point where every council that came through had a different idea. The bottom line with Lot 72, when it was donated by Chip Hanley to the city of Solvang, it was given under the guise of being used as dedicated open space. No ancillary parks, no anything. It was going to be open space. The 600 square foot building that's in here and noted was going to be, or 400 square foot, whatever it was going to be a bathroom, public bathroom for people who walked on the site so they could use the bathroom facility and not have to worry about going someplace else. It's been used over the years since it was developed and that portion was given to the city. It's been used over the years as a beautiful area for walking, enjoying dog walks, people walking, and until recently when the drone show came in, which I think was abuse of the use and abuse of the intended use, it has been a quiet, great place for people to go up and contemplate and have a beautiful view of the surrounding area. One of the few sunny fields left around here. And so I noticed Chip said we a lot when we were having discussions with Tom Walton and company. Who is we? If you could clarify that, it would be great. You mentioned we several
I'm sorry,
times.
you got to keep this to public comment. I cannot start, if everyone
Okay,
can
well, perhaps you could ask Chip to clarify who we is when he's discussing this, because we is a general term. I don't know who he was talking to. Maybe Tom Walton, but was the city involved in it, and where did this all come from? I know Chip likes to ride his horse, and he has visions of being able to ride his horse from here to Refugio or to Buellton and other places. That's great. But the intended use for Lot 72, when it was developed and taken from the developer and given to the city, was for dedicated open space, and it was not meant for having any construction of buildings other than the bathroom facility. That was it. And it was meant to be an open area for people to be able to walk and enjoy. That's it. It buffered between the Mission of San Ynez and the Village Collection and the commercial district, which is all surrounding it. It's just a great area to enjoy. So, bottom line is, if we want to have a battle about it again, we'll do it again. But it's a very hot ticket item for people that vote for you people. I'm just telling you right now. So, thank you.
Renee Condit, followed by Bob Andrews.
Good evening. It was interesting to listen to the history that was just told to us by the lawyer. I remember it differently, and maybe it's because I've been here forever and lived down there. So like I said, it was amusing. That's not, by the way, a paved parking lot. That's all dirt up there, then Lot 72. Just a little point of interest there, correction, I should say. It's also very interesting. We've been through this forever. It's our life. We live right there. We're one of the lots. We're down below. We had to move our driveway at some point when all the lots were being put up there. And we were told by the city council that was sacred Indian ground. We had to move our driveway over along where the pepper trees are planted now between the Mission and 72. It had to be raised. There was so much care taken. It was a big cost, and we were very concerned and prudent and did everything by the book to protect that land up there because, like I said, they said it was a burial site, and they found all kinds of archaeological objects. And so now I'm listening to all the stuff where they said that Chip, our Chip Hanley, who was asked, that's air quotes, asked to donate that lot. You can go back and find out what happened, that he said it was for special events. Never, ever was that to be for special events. His idea was to have a rose garden and a walking path down there so that the elderly people at the Lutheran home could come down and walk on flat ground and enjoy being out in nature and tend to the garden. And that's all that was meant for. Since it's become a pseudo dog park, which people really enjoy, and it's great. Living down there, we've seen what happens when the bicyclists come down. I personally got to pull 4 Japanese teenagers out of a barbed wire fence. They got out of control going down our driveway, or whatever you want to call, the attorney calls it something different, but our driveway down to our home. And we had the ambulance down there. It was a mess. I mean, it was awful. I can't tell you how many things we've seen that's happened on that road. Horses gone down on a paved road, people riding on the road on a horse. And I'm a horse person, and that was ugly. Shoes on the horse. I mean, you don't do it. It's just interesting to me how people have not really gone back and looked at what's happened at the history, and all of a sudden they keep changing their mind and they're going to do something grand because everybody's out for the buck. And the wonderful conversations supposedly the attorney had with people, he forgot to mention the other side of the conversations, heated conversations that day up at the drone deal. It wasn't wonderful, and it wasn't all great input. There is a whole nother side that you people aren't hearing and you aren't seeing. I suggest you look into it before you make any rash decisions. Thank you.
Bob Andrews, followed by Arthur George.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Bob Andrews. My wife, Margaret, and I live at 350 Alisol Mesa Road, one of the 2 houses that is served by the road that goes across Lot 72. And I was there in 2007, Chip, and was very actively involved in promoting and assisting having that lease brought together between the trust and the city for the purposes for which it was originally intended. At that time, and by the way, that was not 13 years ago. The lease is dated, for reference purposes, April of 2008. But if you look at it carefully, it was signed on March 30, 2010, and that is the date that the 55-year term starts to run. So it's been not quite 10 years since that became effective. But importantly, the way that happened was when the former owner, Chip Hanley, you've heard that name mentioned before, got approval for the Village Collection subdivision. He was required to dedicate, as a condition of approval of the subdivision map, Lot 72 for public open space. And as you've also heard, there was a lot of controversy over the years, it was very heated, about what public open space meant. So back then, he wrote a letter to the council. It's in the file, you should have it. I have a copy here, and I'd like to read it because I think it's as important today as it was back then. It's dated February 19, 2010, just shortly over a month before the lease became effective, addressed to the then City Council. Dear Mayor and members of the council, in 1992, my family and I dedicated Lot 72 to the City of Solvang to be used for purposes consistent with the specific plan. Those purposes were to maintain views
and to allow active and restricted recreational use, including bicycle and pedestrian paths. For going on 18 years, debates have raged over the meaning of those simple words. As an original signatory to the deed, I can assure you that a lease to a nonprofit organization, such as the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation, for use as an historic park is precisely the kind of use we intended when my family and I dedicated the property to the city nearly 18 years ago. Please approve the proposed lease. In doing so, not only will you honor and respect our original intent, but you will also put an end to the nearly 2-decade-long debate over what that was. Thank you. And the then council approved the lease on a 5-0 vote, and we think it is as relevant and important today as it was then. Thank you.
Arthur George, followed by Michael and Wally.
Good evening. I'm Arthur George, a member of the Board of Directors at the Village Collection Homeowners Association on the southern border of Lot 72. The board has asked me to speak on its behalf, and they're here tonight in force. They would like me yourself known. After specific plan number 2 established recreation as the use of Lot 72, the Mission Santa Ynez National Historic Landmark District was created in 1999, which has been left out of the staff report, by the way, for the purpose of establishing a historic park running from the Mission Mills over to the Mission. Lot 72 was included within this district and is conceptually integral to the project. It was precisely for purposes of creating this park, historic park, that the city leased Lot 72 to the trust, and you can see that in the lease. Accordingly, the city's use of the lot was limited to installing water supply infrastructure for parking and parking for public events that are not held on the lot. The lease does not allow holding events on the lot. In the context of the historical park, the lot's use would remain largely the same as now, except for some plaques describing the site's history, views to the east of the south, and a footpath along the edge of the mesa with some benches. The Village Collection supports realizing the historic park project and using Lot 72 consistently with that purpose. We support the continuation of the lease to the trust and the lease's provisions governing the city's permitted use of the lot, which should not be changed. We urge the city, 1, to clearly come out in favor of establishing the historical park, and 2, to work proactively with the trust, the state, and other stakeholders to realize that project. When finished, the park will offer yet another tourist destination in Solvang that will bring in additional tourists and their dollars. And because of the lot's history with the Chumash, the park would also be a nice adjunct to the Chumash Museum that is being constructed. I and my neighbors like having Lot 72 as a buffer. In fact, I and the others chose to live there in reliance on the fact that the lot would not be developed or used for active parks or public events. This helps keep up our property values and makes our neighborhood a more desirable place to live. Holding the recent drone show on Lot 72 is an example of why events should not be held there. Under current arrangements, our HOA, together with the Vineyard, Lots 67 and 68, and the Trust, are responsible for maintaining and repairing the road at our own cost. Just before the drone show, we had spent over $11,000 to patch and put slurry on the road, but the trucks used for the show scratched it up and dragged mud all over it, and it still hasn't been cleaned up. And I have the photos here if you want to see it that I took today. The show also had adverse consequences within our neighborhood. People trespassed over our private common area in order to view the show without buying tickets, and temporary no parking signs were put on our streets for 4 days, which was an eyesore, and it still didn't work. The city also makes other uses of the road, and now a bike path alongside it is being proposed. Further, what happens on the lot also affects the road and therefore us too. California law says that the expense of maintaining such a private road should be borne among those who use it in proportion to their use. But as matters stand, the city pays nothing. We believe that at a minimum, the city should either clean up the messes on the road that it makes or reimburse us for the cost when we have to do it ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. It usually makes a noise, but it's not making a noise. It's like doing this little.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Michael Imwally. I'm the Associate Executive Director for Cultural Resources at the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'd like to present a very brief background on the significance of the archaeological site located on Lot 72. Archaeological Site CA SBA 518 represents the site of the old mission and 2 Chumash villages. To the north of Lot 72 is a village comprised of adobe apartments. The village located on Lot 72 was the village where the Indians lived in their traditional semi-spherical houses known as apse. Between 1804, when the mission was founded, and 1812, when they began construction of the adobe apartments for the Indians, virtually all of the Indian residents of the mission, 626 in 1812, lived in that village. While this portion of the site was archaeologically tested in the late 1980s in conjunction with the development of Duff Mesa for the village collection, traditional housing sites at most missions tend to be overlooked due to their low visibility. Unlike their adobe counterparts, they can easily be identified by their durable stone foundations. Apse comprised of willow branches and tules do not survive archaeologically. This site can provide unique insights into Chumash lifeways. A geophysical survey of the site in 2018 revealed archaeological features extending farther south into Lot 72 than originally assumed. With the paucity of resources documenting traditional Native American housing at California missions, the Santa Ynez Village may serve as an index for identifying traditional housing sites at other missions. In 1998, SBTHP submitted, in partnership with the Santa Ynez Mission and the City of Solvang, a nomination for the Mission Santa Ynez National Historic Landmark District to the National Park Service. The district included the Mission property, the SBTHP property, now State Parks, and Lot 72. That designation was granted by the Park Service on January 20th, 1999. As a result of the successful nomination in partnership with the City of Solvang, SBTHP Board of Directors presented the City with the George and Vivian Oborn Preservation Stewardship Award, recognizing individuals and organizations that demonstrate outstanding preservation work in connection with a specific project in Santa Barbara County. The following year, the city entrusted the property to SBTHP because of our unique qualifications with the preservation and studies of sites like these. In 2010, SBTHP entered into a 55-year ground lease with the City of Solvang. The current ground lease was issued a negative deck during the CEQA process based on its proposed use as a historic park with pedestrian trails. Any other proposed use or development of the property should undergo a separate environmental analysis. Thank you.
I'm sorry, please no clapping. Kevin Niemans, followed by Ann Peterson.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Much of what I was going to say this evening it's already been said, but I just want to focus in on the document that creates a relationship with the city and the trust is the lease. And I invite you to look at the lease, okay? And what a lease is, and it gives the tenant, that is the trust, the exclusive use of the property, even to the exclusion of the landlord, in this case is the city, okay? However, there are provisions in the lease that say exactly the uses that the city can do, and that's in section 6.3. So I invite you to look at that. And that says that the city's use is limited to special event parking at a specific location at the southwest corner of Lot 72, and construction of a well and an underground storage facility. So that's what the city can do with Lot 72 right now within the parameters of the lease. Okay. The trust and the city, we both serve the public. We're a public benefit, not-for-profit corporation, okay? I'm the attorney for the trust, and I'm also on the board of directors, okay? The city is also here to serve the public, and we both want to serve the public, but we have to do that in the parameters of our relationship that we've created based on this rich history that you've heard from your citizens here. So we're happy to cooperate with the city, but we want to do it to meet all of our common goals and not have anyone unilaterally take action that conflicts with not only the historic context, but the legal document, which is the lease. Okay, so keep that in mind. Thank you very much.
And I'm sorry, I'm trying to find section 6.2.
3.6.
3.6, okay,
Okay.
because 6.2 doesn't exist.
Thank you for looking, I
3.6,
appreciate
okay.
that. So section 3.6, and thanks for the correction.
Thank you. Ann Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Ann Peterson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. We've got a lot of members of the Trust family here tonight. I just want to introduce in particular Debbie Aceves, our Board President, who's joined us tonight. The Trust has had a presence in the Valley since 1996, when the organization purchased the San Ynez Mission Mills from former owners Harry and Ellen Nill. In 2008, we sold the Mills parcel to California State Parks, and we now operate it for the state. We are working with the state on the required planning and designation process to create a state historic park on the site. This process takes time due to all of the requirements imposed on it by the state. In addition, the Trust is committed to working with all partners in the National Historic Landmark District. We own a parcel adjacent to the state's property, providing road access to state property. We have a strong partnership and easements in place with Mission San Ynez for both parking and access. And we are proud of our 10-year relationship with the City of Solvang to serve as stewards of Lot 72. It's a sensitive archaeological site, and it's the location of the Chumash Indian quarters at the Mission. We have two staff who live on site at the property, Tom and Leanne, who've been referenced multiple times tonight. They serve as agricultural and maintenance stewards. And one is a retired sheriff and longtime resident of Solvang, and the other is a historical archaeologist. These are the special resources that we bring to the stewardship of this property. We look forward to our continued relationship with the City of Solvang to help protect this very special and sensitive space. Thank you.
All right, that's the last of the public speaker slips. Chip, there's a lot of questions that was raised. I'd like to have you provide any.
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to speak on that?
I can speak.
Ed Skit, you can speak.
Mayor, City Council members, I'm actually in a very unique situation here tonight because I am one of the City Council members who voted back in 2010 to recognize and sign the lease that is currently with the Santa Barbara Historic Trust. We went through a major controversy or discussions. There were people who wanted to put ballparks on the field with lighting, wanted to develop parking lots. After long and very serious discussions, we came back, our city council at that time took a look at the archaeological history, the situation that was developed by the Historic Trust, and at that time there, it was our opinion that the best use of that lot for the city and for the community and for historic preservation was to sign the lease that we did with the Historic Trust. They have been very good with the property. Part of the problem with they haven't developed as far as they would like to is the state at times has had some financial difficulties where they do not give as much money to the Parks Department as they have. But the lease was signed in good faith by the City Council at that time and good faith to the Santa Barbara County Land Trust, or Historic Trust. It was not to be set up for concerts. It was not supposed to be used for other special events. It was very limited to what it was used for, and that is the lease we signed at that time. And we were happy with the lease. The county, or the Historic Trust, was happy with the lease. And I think we have people wanting to go back and change something that they know nothing about the history in the first place. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Chip?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So I'm not sure who's been spreading stories about what there may be an interest in doing out there. Mr. Condit mentioned a number of things. I want to put his mind at ease. We have not made any plans on your part. That's actually why we brought this to you for direction, even on the simple item of going back and having discussions with the trust about what's going on with the trust's plans and development of the property. So I don't know how much, transparency has happened in years past, but we are trying to be as transparent as possible. And I think I talked about the fact that you all last September approved spending money to clean up some stuff, which has created both an opportunity for public access to the property where there was a bunch of dead brush and weeds and fallen trees and stuff that county flood control had just pulled out and thrown along the edge of the road that got cleaned up. So that was the we discussions that I mentioned. I'm going to agree with all of Mr. Andrews' history, with a slight exception. He didn't mention the exact language of the specific plan. And there was a specific, having a hard time with that word, but specific plan that was voted on by the citizens of Solvang. And I've quoted for you that language. And good, bad, indifferent, I'm not the decision maker on that. There are two particular uses that were listed for this area of the specific plan. And there were also some particular requirements for the city to maintain control for some of that use. Mr. George, I would say, I think we are coming back and asking you if you want your staff to work proactively with the trust and others for the development of the historic park. We think that it has been quite a while since the city last had that kind of touch base and discussion, whether it's 13 years or 10 years, both are kind of a long time. As others have mentioned, there have been changes in the way that the California State Parks Department does things over the years, and there was clearly an intent at the beginning of this relationship that state parks would end up with the lease and with control of all of that property. And we think that's something that you may want us to have an ongoing discussion with the trust about, including if you want us to talk about working proactively for development of the park, no matter how little that involves. Finally, I think Mr. Nimmons in many ways made my point, which is there is a lease. Right now, there are provisions in the lease that we found most recently are probably missing. And we think that there should be some discussion about those points, and we came to you to get authorization to be able to go and have that discussion. We think that the Trust for Historic Preservation is a wonderful organization. Debbie, thank you for coming. We want to continue, and when I say we, I think I'm speaking for your staff. We want to continue working, again, proactively with this, but we want to have the transparency and come to you when we think it is a good time to get direction. Thanks.
Okay. With that, we'll take this back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start?
I can go ahead if you want. You go ahead, Karen.
I have a couple questions just right off the top. So on 114 of our packet, we've got our signers. We have Roy Hanley, Brad Vidro. Who is the signer? Who's the president? I don't know who that name is. Back in 3/22/10.
I believe that that's actually the president of the Trust for Historic Preservation from back then. And I
Who
don't
wa- who
happen
was
to,
that?
to remember who was the president of the Trust for Historic Preservation. Again, by the way, you guys do some funny things.
Well, that's what I want to know. I want to know who the person is because my second.
And do you happen to remember who would have been the president of the trust back that year?
Okay, because I'd be very interested to know who that was and the relationship to the city at that time. My other question.
President of the trust of the.
Right, I'd like to know who that person was. I'd like to know the name. And then second, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but is there any relationship between Roy and Chip Hanley? No. No, so that's just a coincidence. I just wanted to just get that off the table. I'll just get that out of the way. But I would be curious as to who the president of the trust was at that time, because it seems very unusual to me that a city would do a 55-year lease for $600. That's, I don't, 55 years for $600 with, extreme limitations on how we might be able to use that property, which, by the way, I've noticed that nothing's really been done to that property. It was supposed to be a historic park. It certainly isn't. It's a dry field with concrete sidewalks around it, because I go through there a lot. So I would be in favor of going into more discussion with the historic preservation and discussing their plan for creating this park that was supposed to have been done.
Daniel, I believe you had some points.
Sure. First of all, Arthur George pointed out that the road was mucked up or dirty or whatnot, and I do think that as a city we should be cleaning that up, that we shouldn't leave something that we're not even maintaining or paying for in that type of condition. So I agree with that completely. I do have a question. The trust has come here and talked about this lease and whatnot. Didn't they accept $3,000 for us to do an event on that property? So I'm kind of confused, because they've come up here and told us that it's only supposed to be used for certain things, it's only supposed to be open space, but then they go ahead and take $3,000 for us to do an event. So I'm kind of wondering, I'm just wondering what's going on there, if that's what happened with those discussions and why they accepted that, or at that time, why didn't they say, you're not supposed to be doing that, the lease says you're not supposed to be doing that?
We did say that. We did. It was very clear. We had conversations.
Did the check clear?
It did.
Okay, so that's what I'm wondering, so.
And I'm sorry, I can't keep.
That's what I'm asking, because I'm kind of confused as to why they accepted the money if they were.
I can answer that.
Okay, please.
Well, the city came to the trust and requested this, and it was very important to them. And we were very clear that it wasn't permitted by the lease at all. We were very clear about that. And we said we can only do it pursuant to a written rental agreement where you provide an indemnity, we know there's insurance in place, we provide a security deposit for that very reason, so we can get those things cleaned up. And we went ahead, cooperated with them. We didn't get the signed rental agreement till just about a week ago, and we didn't get the check till just about a few days ago, after we had inquired and inquired and inquired, and I was told it was coming and coming and coming. So we were very cooperative with the city because this seemed like something important for them. Turns out the neighbors didn't like it at all, and so this time it worked. Now, I don't know if would the city have preferred that we just say, no, we're not going to do it at all, and you can't have your drone show? Then the drone show never would have happened. I mean, we're darned if we do, we're darned if we don't. We want to cooperate, but then we get criticized if we do cooperate, and so that can't happen. We're here to benefit the public, both of us, and we need to do that within the parameters of the lease. And we have plenty of people who can tell you about the difficulties we've had with the state and the length of time and the different hoops and agencies we'd have to go through. I'll save that for another discussion, but if you do want that information, we have a whole committee and even people here tonight who could speak to you about that.
Thank you.
I think my bigger concern is the residents that live right there in Village Collection. And I personally don't know that I want to spend a ton more time on this, send out our staff, spend a bunch of money to go through something that's possibly not going to result in anything anyway. So if the lease is is signed and done. Maybe we should just figure out what we do with, events and whatnot on other properties and other areas, and leave it as it was supposed to be, as Chip Hanley pointed out, as open space. And I also don't think we need to go spend money and put in a bathroom and everything. I don't think that's in that wouldn't be right financially right now as well. That's kind of my opinion on it.
Robert?
Just random thoughts.
Your microphone.
Since I got elected, at least, there's always a small group that says, you're going to get voted out. I'm like I care. I'm here to do what's best for the most people. I don't care when people threaten me with votes. It just bothers me like to no end. But Chip Hanley made an agreement. It sure sounds like we should be doing what Chip Hanley said, because it was his property, even though it's like, hey, let me put all these houses and upset everybody else, but I'll give you guys this land. That's totally separate. Chip Hanley wanted us to do what he wanted us to do with the property, which is what we should do. We have Section 3.6, which I agree with. We signed it, and that's where I think we should leave it and leave this whole property alone.
Okay. Chris?
I don't know where to begin. There's so much here to unpack. First of all, there's a private road that cuts through this right in the middle of the Chumash Indian village. Is that clear? Is that true?
It is. It was built on top of fill to protect the archaeology.
So why not move the road? That's a special area, right? It's a very... So, again,
Yeah,
I find this amazing that you guys are so concerned about this road. That doesn't mean it's right, does it?
Chris, I'm sorry, we can't keep playing off the floor. Just
You're right.
state
So
your...
my issue here is that I agree. This is probably, I don't want to call it, I don't know, archaeologically sensitive and really, really important land. And I think a road running right through the little village is kind of bizarre. And I can't talk to you.
I'm sorry.
I can't talk to you. I'm sorry. I would love to learn more from the trust about how this happened, right? I agree. But the community...
Chris, enough.
I think the community...
Make your comments and let's move on.
I am trying, thank you. I think the community deserves a better explanation of how this happened, right? I don't know what kind of agreements happened in the past. I don't know why they did that. It sounds to me like somebody was trying to make some money off of Duff Mesa. I get that. And the previous council let that happen. And in exchange, they made a deal for Lot 72. But unfortunately, I think Lot 72 has some special historic value and meaning, and I think we need to look more into that too. Now, can the city do a better job working with the state or with the trust? I don't know, but I'd like to explore that. I'd like to learn more from the trust about the value of this land, the historical value of the land. And more importantly, I'd like to know how is the public supposed to move from the bluff down to the Delta area and to enjoy that area, at least on foot? I'm not suggesting that they take a car or take a bike, but why can't they just walk down that road? But if it's a private road, then they can't use it. Is that correct?
It's complicated.
Well, I want to know. I want to deconstruct this. Is this
Chip,
a
I think you
private
had some
road?
comments. Chris?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, actually, the public has the right to pass across the property. There are some particular provisions of the lease that confirm that. There are also some provisions of the specific plan for Lot 72. And again, I'm going to note, when Mr. Nimmer got up from the audience, we had some disagreement with the trust about what the lease is supposed to provide and what the city's ownership interests still are. And we think those are probably things that we ought to discuss with the trust and then come back to your council, not doing a question and answer period back and forth between speakers in the audience and your council.
I would have to agree with that.
Okay.
So I'd like to make the motion that we follow staff recommendation, that we ask them to go ahead and start that discussion. We open it up for more, so we can better understand what was going on.
Mr. Mayor, can I make very clear, we are not asking, we're not asking for authority for development or going back to the, whatever it was, 18 years of planning process and anything else. So that would be a different item. This is just a simple discussion about the lease, where are we, And actually, I think that Zena and I are hoping that this will result in a presentation from the trust that we had been talking with them about for a couple of months, and I suspect that they will be coming back with a presentation to you.
All right, so do you need direction on that? Do you want me to?
So why don't we just let them come back with a presentation? I just don't understand why we need to spend so much
I'm
staff time figuring this out. They obviously, the public knows a lot more about this than any of us, and let's let them put this together and bring it back and talk to us about it. I don't think we need to assign staff to go out and talk to them about this. It's just spending time and money that
We're
we don't need
directing
to.
staff to do that.
Correct. I don't think we need to. I think they
how
can
else
come.
are they going to know?
I agree with you.
They can come present it to us. I mean, the trust can come back and tell us exactly what's going on. They seem to be very interested in the public opinion and helping the public, and let's let them come back and tell us exactly what's in the lease, the history of it, everything that's going on that you want to know. I don't think we need to direct our staff to spend time doing this.
No, we're making it possible for them to go talk to them. That's all we're saying. We're not.
I'd rather not. I don't think we need to delve into it.
All right, well, then I disagree with you, because I'm actually really interested in the archaeological value of that spot.
And I think the trust would be the best one to talk to about it.
I agree, but in order to discuss that, I think our staff needs to have that authority to go and talk to them.
I don't want to spend the time.
So we
or
have
money.
to, so what you're saying, let me get this straight. You're asking us as a council to wait for the trust to come to us and make a presentation.
No, I think what he's saying is let's not touch this property. Let's leave it alone. Let's move on. And if,
No, I got
the
that.
trust wants to
But
come
how
talk
are
to us
we-
about it, that's great.
So when are we supposed to hear this out? Like 50 years from now when the
Was
the
that
lease runs
was
out?
that a motion, Robert?
I like that. That's
I'll
a
second
motion.
it.
Well, I have a little more, just
Again,
a little more comment.
Yeah, I don't
Karen?
think that's fair.
Um,
This is unbelievable. You can't just cut us off in the middle of a conversation.
I'm not cutting you off, Karen.
I really appreciate the explanation because I'm not involved in these kind of organizations at the state or county level. And so, I don't know the challenges that you all face in dealing with the state and actually making this into a park as it was said to be. So apparently there are some limitations there. So I guess I was just expressing some of my disappointment that it seems like just a dry dirt lot, and for seniors to come down, although it would have been a nice idea to come down from the Lutheran home and walk around that, there's no shade, it's just hot concrete in the middle of the summer. So, but I understand you probably have looked into this and you are experts and I am not. I have to agree then, with my council members to allow the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation to come to us with the whole presentation for the use of the property and their obstacles in doing what was said would be done. So, being that it is an archaeological site, I have no idea what other areas were possibly also archaeological sites and overlooked, and now we have Lot 72 that we're dealing with. So,
The entire village estate. That was
I
probably
think
part of the
they
archaeological
can-
site,
I think
too.
they can come to us with the presentation.
So I would like to know I'd like you guys to find out when they would come up and talk to us about this, because I think this is really important. I think that has some wonderful archaeological value that the community could all benefit from, visitors would benefit from. I think that site alone could be a big visitor draw. But we need to treat that with the same kind of respect.
What my concern is here is that we have this item on the agenda. It's absorbing an incredible amount of time. And we have a lot of other things we have to get taken care of around here. I understand bringing it up, and a lot of our files here at the city are not all that complete. And so, I'd love to have more complete files so that we don't have the Groundhog Day event happening over and over. But at the same time, we have so many other issues to deal with. I'm not aware of anything that this council wants to do to change Lot 72. Why we'd be pulling out of a lease or any of these other things. So, I'm kind of over this item. I appreciate all the comment.
Mr. Mayor,
I
that's
can always
why-
sit down with the trust, and we can arrange a time for a presentation where we can explain to the community just how this works and what the original plan was. I looked at some of the files myself. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in there. There was a specific plan in there that says that, some huge parking lot there. I don't think this council wants to do that. So with that, I would like for us to move on. I don't want to spend
Dude, why
a
don't we
bunch of
have
attorney
them,
fees.
why don't we have them speak at the State of the City so they can be videotaped and the whole community then can
All right.
watch what this
I think
So-
if we need, if you would like a history lesson, then you need to go to them and discuss it with them, sit down with them. I don't think that would benefit the entire city. I think the lot is how it is.
So you're saying that the community doesn't need to know any further?
They need to know, and
Yeah,
if you want to go get
exactly.
that information, you can get it for them. But
I
I don't
think-
think we should be paying an exorbitant amount of money to go find out a history lesson. That's my
No,
opinion.
that's not what I'm
right.
asking.
So with that, I will move that we just table this item. I'd appreciate anything the public has to offer to put into the, receive and file, sorry. I'd appreciate anything the public has to offer to add into the file so we have more complete files. If the trust would like to come make a presentation, we can sit down, we can talk about that, not a problem. But I don't think it's necessary. I think I'm looking for a second.
Well, the only thing, yeah, I would amend that to include the cleaning of the street to make sure that that road is repaired to
The money was already given to them. That was, the money was
deposit,
supposed to be,
right.
was
So-
supposed to be used
No,
for
no,
the
no.
cleaning.
No, so I'll
That's what the
accept,
lawyer
I'm
said.
sorry. I'll accept I will accept the amendment.
Okay. Roll call, okay.
Is
Mayor
there a
Pro
s-
Tem-
is
Mayor
there a
Pro Tem
second?
Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Diarnes,
No.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes.
That motion carries 4-1 with Councilmember Diarnes voting no. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll have a 5-minute break here before starting the next item. number 5, staff report.
Item number 5, Mayor, is the Santa Barbara County Community Resource Deputy Contract Policy Direction. The city manager will report.
Yes, Santa Barbara County Community Resource Deputy Policy Direction. This item is in front of you staff is looking for authorization for you to authorize staff to contact the Sheriff's Office to modify the contract. City of Solvang has been contracting with the Sheriff's Department since they've incorporated for general law enforcement services. Those services have recently been going up in price. They've changed their methodology of how they calculate costs, and also have changed the methodology of the latest term of how they provide law enforcement. And it's now based on hours versus on specific positions. We are expecting up to or around 10% increase for the next fiscal year for just the general law enforcement services, which are this year costing us just over $2 million. In addition to the general law enforcement services, the city has historically chosen to contract for what the county calls a menu item, where you pay specifically for a dedicated position to work with the city. And so the two types of menu items that the county offers is traffic enforcement deputy or a community resource deputy. The city of Solvang has historically for a long time, as I understand, contracted for the community resource deputy. In having reviewed that contract, that's current contract, which is listed on your page 122 of the packet, you will see the scope of work that the community resource deputy is supposed to provide for the city. And really what the city has mostly relied on, or most heavily in terms of hours on the community resource deputy, has been help from the deputy with our special events. Now that the city has changed its methodology and its direction, how events would be managed going forward, and has hired a private company, IDK Events, to deal with the logistics, we expect that there should be a lot less need from law enforcement, which is a sworn law enforcement officer, costing the city over $200,000 a year to help us with those events. And so if you look at the rest of the type of activities that this position is supposed to be working on with the city, it's community liaison for crime prevention, it's working with the schools, which holding on sheriff's volunteer team, citizen academy. So a lot of those services can actually be arguably set to be part of the County of Santa Barbara general services within the sheriff's scope. And we've also been hearing that there's concerns in certain areas and need for traffic enforcement, which our community resource deputy would not be able to help us with. So the question is there an interest in either issuing a 90-day termination clause and then discussing with the county whether the city would like to pursue a full-on traffic enforcement officer, which would actually cost us maybe additional $35,000 on top of the $212, because traffic enforcement requires a motorcycle and some special training, so it's a little bit more expensive item, or to just work with the county on targeted traffic enforcement on overtime terms to target specific areas, because it sounds like what I've heard so far is that there are specific areas where traffic enforcement is needed, and it would be my expectation that we could save quite a bit of money by just targeting those areas and having additional deputies on overtime. So the direction is, would you like to authorize staff to issue a 90-day termination for the community resource portion of the contract with the Sheriff's Department?
And then how to pursue with?
And then we would work with the Sheriff's Department and come back to you with a strategy for traffic calming, which would then include, traffic enforcement, and then working with Public Works as well to see what other traffic calming.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff report?
Yes. So if we were to keep the community resources officer, we could contract out, as it says here, the city could also consider providing with a 90-day and work with the counties to determine specific target traffic enforcement overtime basis. We could keep the community resource officer and contract for additional needs, or
Yes,
okay.
that is one of the options.
All right.
So you could choose to keep the community resource deputy, and you have in your packet outlined what he is working on. You could direct us to, in addition to look into overtime, which is additional budget for traffic enforcement, or you could direct us to look into a full-time contract for a traffic enforcement officer dedicated to the city of Solvang.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to public comment. I have no speaker slips on this item. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Please approach.
Good evening, all. I'm Mary Conway, and I work with the Santa Ynez Valley Youth Coalition under People Helping People. And I work to help reduce and prevent youth substance abuse. And so I'm not an expert on everything that Charlie has done in the past, but I think from my standpoint in trying to help our kids and support our kids, it's been so great to have a community resource officer in our community here. Charlie goes way beyond any officer would go to connect with the kids, to be a mentor to the kids. He's at all of the school dances to keep them safe. I just feel like we really need to have Charlie stay here full time. And, you know, to replace him with, to replace a resource officer with a traffic officer, there's a huge void in our community in regards to our kids and people that have actually grown up here with Charlie and the things that he's done to help them. So I would really encourage you to please consider all the things that you can't see there that are so important to our community, to our children. I just can't see what things would be like if Charlie wasn't here mentoring our kids, besides, you know, doing a lot of the parking and event issues. So please consider that when you're making your decision on either a traffic officer or a community resource officer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else that wants to speak on this item, we'll take this back to the council for discussion action. Who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay, Robert?
These are just my personal thoughts, but I mean, Charlie, first of all, traffic enforcement, with all the social media that we have going right now, that is so popular, and that's how people communicate about their visits to Solvang. If we start enforcing traffic more strictly, it's going to get out. I think it's going to hurt tourism. And I think that Charlie has been a fixture in this town. He's not that far away from retirement. And he is the face of the police department to 80% of the residents here, and I would like to keep him and contract as needed for other services.
And I would just respectfully request the council, as you discuss this item, that this item is not about Charlie. This item is about addressing the needs of the community. So if you could please refrain from, you know, using personal names.
Got it.
Yeah, the county of Santa Barbara could actually assign anybody to our unit.
Charlie
at
could,
any
the
point.
county could just change that person out tomorrow.
Correct.
It could be, this is about the needs of the community, not.
Okay, then I'll go back to
Yeah.
the points that position does, and I think it's very important for the city of Solvang.
Okay.
I agree with Robert. We definitely need a community resources officer, and I would suggest contracting out for any other needs, targeting traffic problem areas.
Okay. Chris or Daniel?
I just think spending $250,000 a year for that position, and I'm not talking about any individuals here,
I agree.
seems egregious, and I'm not quite sure. I guess I don't know specifically everything that position is in charge of or that position is doing. My understanding is they are not allowed to enforce anything really. So are we paying $250,000 to the sheriff's office for someone to stand out there during parades and whatnot, which my understanding per the report is that IDK would be taking care of these events, and that's sort of those issues would be taken care of. So, and I definitely don't want to add on top of it hiring out a full-time traffic enforcement officer. I like the ability of having one that targets certain areas at certain times when it maybe there's more, like during the summer when there's more high traffic going, taking the back road. So I would definitely be in favor of the 90-day cancellation and figuring out what we want to do from there. That's.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
About what point? Oh, as much as I like IDK, and I think they've done a great job, and we've thrown stuff at them, they've done it. I'm trading a known for an unknown, and that makes me nervous.
Or you're trading security for an actual officer.
Correct. I would almost not want to do this now. If IDK is going to bring somebody in, I'd like to see how that pans out and how that works before we go making changes in staffing. Okay.
I have to agree with Daniel. I don't know how much he actually does get paid at the community resource officer, but I can't believe it's anywhere near $225,000, as stated here in the packet. My feeling is that position, we're paying way too much for the scope of services, and just on a business case evaluation, this doesn't make sense to me. There may be one or two things in the scope of service that are really important, but the rest, they're just not necessary in my opinion. We can do that probably a different way.
And if I may make a comment about the youth services for a community resource deputy, our school districts are also kind of crisscrossing boundaries of who actually goes to school in Solvang. We have school districts here where we have high school in Santa Ynez, and Solvang Elementary School, it also has kids from outside of just the city of Solvang, so we're paying for these services with the money of city of Solvang. And if there's an interest through the next contract negotiation with the county, we could work with them more closely to determine, who should really be providing those youth services on part of the Sheriff's Department.
So in order to give you that capacity to negotiate, we should move along the lines you suggested, which is move to terminate, and then renegotiate. Is that right?
Yes.
I agree with that.
Daniel, I think you spoke pretty eloquently. It's really just more about the needs of the community, readdressing that, and specifically, the costs that we have. And yeah, things kind of it changes as it go. Like right now, January traffic's pretty light. The neighborhoods stop complaining about everyone blowing through them. But then come summer, when things get logged back up, then we know we need some additional support out there, and we don't have that right now. So. I'm open for renegotiating. I don't know, Dana, do you have a motion that you would like to
I'll make the motion that we follow staff's recommendation to have the 90-day cancellation and renegotiate the contract and bring it back to the city council to discuss, and also look at possibly targeting with the traffic officer if that's possible as well.
I'll second that.
Okay. And I would just like to provide direction to staff also if there's anything we can do for the current needs that are there, like the supporting the youth and stuff like that. Just bring those recommendations back to the council as that unfolds. So
I'll accept that amendment.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
This is tough. I'm going to vote no, but I appreciate what they're saying.
So your vote is no, sir?
My vote is voting no.
Thank you. Councilmember Diarnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Waite?
No.
Mayor Toussaint?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-2 with Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Clark and Councilmember Wade voting in the negative. Thank you.
On to item number 6, professional services agreement, engineering services for the wastewater treatment water quality project. Can we get a staff report?
All right, absolutely. I would just like to note before I begin into the staff report that Nathan Giacinto, our wastewater treatment plant superintendent, is here, and our proposed consultant, their project engineer, Jeff Weissar, is here. And I've asked them to be here, and they happily want to be here because of the importance of this issue, and in case you do have any questions that are maybe more oriented towards them or the operations or the proposed engineering contract. So with that, this project's been in the works for several years. The wastewater treatment plant water quality project actually began back in November 2017 with initiation of the enhanced treatment study and alternative analysis. The study initially included 3 alternatives. In the subsequent years, significant additional research and sewer rate analysis, as well as development of 2 additional alternatives, were completed. On September 9th, 2019, the City Council selected Alternative 3 as the preferred alternative and directed staff to proceed with the engineering design services. So staff followed a 2-step procurement process to secure engineering design services for the wastewater treatment plant water quality project. And that includes a request for qualification step in which a short list of 2 to 4 top qualified firms is created. And then that is followed by the RFP or request for proposal process in which detailed cost proposals are requested from the shortlisted firms. And staff received design services proposals from 3 shortlisted firms. The consultant selection committee unanimously selected Corolla Engineers as the most qualified to provide the requested services, and the Public Works staff negotiated a final fee in the amount of $1,597,000. So I would want to also mention that what's proposed is that if the contract is awarded this evening, we will have a kickoff meeting with the consultant, and they will be authorized to proceed with just a few tasks, but the 3 very important tasks that they will immediately work on is task 1.3 in the scope of services, which is the immediate aeration system upgrade. They fully understand that that's the city's top priority, to put together the plans and specs and help the staff get that out to bid. The second task is the alternative 3 validation. So I do want to make a note that 2 of the 3 proposals we received raised concerns about the MBR alternative. So we want to look at that more closely and validate that alternative, or come back to the City Council with any other type of recommendation. And then the third task that they'll be authorized to do initially is the recycle water preliminary design. And so staff plans to, after the completion of those 3 tasks, staff plans to come back to the City Council, report on the findings of those tasks, and request further direction. And so at that time, we'll provide more detailed information, and the City Council can give the staff any further direction before we continue and authorize the consultant to complete the rest of the engineering services. So as far as alternatives, although not recommended, the City Council could choose to reject all proposals and postpone the wastewater treatment plant water quality project at this time. The City Council could also choose to provide staff with other direction as deemed appropriate. And as far as the fiscal impact, funding for the engineering services for the wastewater treatment plant water quality project in the amount of $1,235,000 is available in the city's approved fiscal year 1920 budget. And although the cost of the proposed consultant services for the project is considered reasonable, the fee proposal did come in about 30% higher than expected. And the primary reason for this is that the previous cost estimates did not include the construction engineering services. So what happens is on a project that's as complex as this, the consultant will prepare plans and specifications, and then we put those out to bid, and the City Council would award a construction contract. But for all the various, so on this type of project, there's numerous specialized pieces of equipment and machinery, and the contractor is required to provide us with information from the manufacturer so that we can verify that what we specified, or what the engineer has specified and designed, that the contractor is providing us that exact correct materials or equipment. Just as a quick example, for example, something as simple as concrete, the submittal we'll get from the contractor will verify that the sand and gravel used in the cement is not reactive. You might have heard the term reactive aggregate. So there's been a lot of bridges and structures in the county that had bad aggregate that affects the long-time life expectancy of the concrete. So they'll provide lab tests from the quarry where this material comes from, and they will provide information on the exact mix design for the concrete, telling us exactly how much sand and gravel and cement and water will be added to the mix. Just an interesting note, if you add too much water to concrete, you actually weaken the concrete. So that's the really important thing. So that's so for this project, that's just an example, one of the submittals, and that's not even a piece of machinery or equipment. But so those are what the submittals are, and so that's part of what's involved with the construction engineering services, and that cost wasn't included previously. The staff report presents a breakdown of the costs based on the wastewater treatment plant portion, the recycled water component, the design of those recycled water facilities, and then that construction engineering component. So all three of those are included in the proposed professional services agreement. And staff, so in conclusion, staff recommends that the City Council approve a professional services agreement with Carollo Engineers in the amount of $1,597,000 and authorize execution of the agreement by the mayor. We also recommend that the City Council authorize the city manager to execute any contract amendments if within the contingency amount of $80,000, and approve a budget adjustment in the amount of $445,000. And that concludes my staff report, and we're here for any questions you may have.
Okay. Are there any questions on the staff report? That will go to public comment. I have no speaker slips. There's now just staff in the room pretty much. So I'll take this back to the council for discussion action. Who would like to start?
I will.
Okay, Karen?
I'm in favor of the staff recommendation. And I did notice the significant price difference between Dudek and the other firms, and I don't know. I mean, I know they do a lot of work for other agencies around here, so I don't know the reasoning for that. But staff recommended Carollo, so I would go with that.
Okay.
Well, if I could just note that Pace's fee was very close to Carollo's. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but then one was like almost double.
Yeah, we were very surprised by that, and just one other little thing. Engineering services typically range from about 8% to about 18% of the construction cost, and so the cost estimate, including all the engineering and everything, was, you heard that 15 million number, but the actual construction of the treatment plant improvements, the estimate of that was 13 million, and so 10% of that is 1.3 million. So the more complex the project is, you're usually on the higher end of that scale. So the Carollo and Pace fees were very competitive.
And so with this, he'll be aiding with the current direction that we have regarding the denitrification of the fine bubble diffusers and.
Yeah, the immediate aeration system upgrade, they're going to be looking at all that. And in fact, we were just, since you brought it up, we were just contacted today by the PG&E Energy System Consultant, AESC, and they'll be coming out on Friday this week to remove all the sensors that they had installed to monitor the power usage.
Got it.
And so they'll have that data, and so it's going to work out really well. They'll produce their final report, and right as, well, assuming you award the contract tonight, then Carollo will be starting in, and they'll get that report, and they'll just go full steam ahead on that.
Perfect. Awesome.
What do you estimate the cost savings to be on an annual basis with the aeration?
Well, I think what he was just describing is that would be, yeah, PG&E just did.
No, he said he was going to bring it last time, so I was kind of curious if he can come up with that number.
I
But
apologize.
I thought last time
It
you
was-
said that
it's in the
PG&E's
tens of thousands
Yeah.
of dollars per year.
How about 100?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're 80% correct,
Yeah,
I'm
you
happy
can-
with that.
It's probably going to be over 50,000 a year that we're going to save in power usage. So,
All right.
But you'll know that soon once PG&E is done with their, now they have, they
Correct.
put their sensors in, we'll get that report back.
And then you're saying also that the engineering costs here are going to be between 10 and 12% of the total cost of the facility? Or do you be a little higher?
No, the
yeah, it's about 12%, I think, if you do the math.
Okay.
So the consultant's fee is based on the, estimated cost of the
Sounds like it's
construction.
in the middle of the range.
Yeah, instead of, you'd expect it to be much higher, more like 16, 17, 18%, because this is a very complex, project with lots of machinery and equipment and calculations and so forth, so.
So it's a good number, I
very-
get it.
very competitive, yeah.
All right.
Ryan, you want to?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
First of all, thank you for having us here. We know this is a big project for you guys. We know this is a big contract for the city. We're very dedicated to making sure you guys make the right decisions, and economic decisions are a big part of that. So when you talk about blowers and aeration, that demand part of an electric bill at a wastewater treatment plant can be as much as 40 to 50% of the bill. So when you start looking at replacing these blowers and putting in units of today's technology, which a lot of times use turbine engine technology as opposed to old centrifugal rotating fans, they become highly efficient and you see significant immediate cost savings. So while we don't have a number to give you today, we have a lot of clients that have implemented this and can see immediate results. The other thing that we'll be looking into is a lot of times utilities will offer some form of grant or loan to help fund these because they know the cost savings is so great. So no promises, but we will be talking to PG&E about that as a way to help drive down your costs.
That would offset the 1.6 million, roughly speaking,
Yeah, I mean, it will
Or the
offset the cost of the installation.
of the blowers.
Yeah.
I see.
So
Okay.
hopefully we can make that happen for you guys. So thank you.
I thought it was a great report. It was well done. I think it's one of the best presentations you've made, so I appreciate that. I know you've worked a long time on that. I know it's exactly what the council has talked about and what we want, so the fact that we're actually getting what we want in a timely fashion is impressive. Thank you very much. I move that we go ahead and accept the staff recommendation.
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Wow. Yes.
Councilmember DeArnaz,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes.
That motion carries 5-0, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. On to item number 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Let's get this done.
City vehicle replacement policy, staff report.
City vehicle replacement policy, this is a fairly short item, really more informational item for the council, just to highlight the fact that we have put together a formal city vehicle replacement policy. You also have in front of you the schedule that outlines all the vehicles that are owned. The city does have a vehicle replacement fund to where we set aside dollars for replacement of the vehicles based on expected life and the depreciation of those vehicles. What this is really here to let you know that even though we have the vehicle replacement policy based on how we operate today, and you see a lot of the vehicles kind of around this area, which is also in the TRC where a lot of tourists park. So 2 messages out of this short report is that one, we will be continuing to work through, the needs of the vehicles that we have as part of the organizational assessment. It's the tools of those services that the Public Works provides, or primarily Public Works has most of the vehicle use. And we also are going to work to move all of the vehicles starting on March 1st to the parking lot 5. So the parking lot that was bought a while ago is sitting there right now with a trolley parked on it. The trolley actually had a term in their agreement that they signed this year that they would acquire private lease for their trolley. So we have had a conversation with them that they would move their equipment elsewhere to a private arrangement, and then the city could, because the city doesn't have a dedicated parking lot for public works or a former corporation yard, so we would then suggest that all of the city vehicles could immediately, with just very minor improvements, go into parking lot 5 along with the buses, which will free up some space for tourists in more prominent parking lots. And so this is kind of informational unless you have any specific direction on vehicle replacement policy.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff report?
So my understanding is we have more than 22 vehicles, is that right?
I would have to count. Matt, do you know the exact?
Yeah, we just updated the list, and that sounds about right. If you include the so we have like the VACCON truck and the dump truck and some other pieces of equipment that are
The specialized pieces.
Yeah, specialized pieces of equipment.
What I'm trying to understand is, I get the impression that we have almost twice as many trucks as we need.
Oh, no, absolutely not. We, now, we do have 3 vehicles in parking lot 4 that are surplus vehicles that are actually being advertised for sale right now, that we're disposing of, basically.
You just answered my question, okay.
Yeah,
So at best, we might be able to remove 3 from inventory.
Correct, yeah.
So get down to 18.
Yeah. But yeah, we do not have, we went through it very carefully. What's been done is, just briefly, is as vehicles reach the end of their useful life or basically in need of being replaced, we evaluate whether or not it makes sense to still keep that to improve the efficiency of the staff. So for example, like the water division, they technically have 3 vehicles for 4 staff, but when a surplus utility truck becomes available, if they can use that and increase their efficiency and productivity, then we keep that. But it's not, it won't be replaced until another vehicle reaches the end of its life and goes into surplus.
So we have 3 trucks for 4 staff.
Well, we have 3 trucks that are in the budget and budgeted for replacement as they reach the end of their useful
No,
life.
you're talking about the water department specifically.
Correct. And then
And
there's
I'm
a
just
fourth,
trying to figure
and
out-
there's a 4th vehicle available to them that is a surplus vehicle that instead of selling it and getting just a few $1,000s, we can keep it and improve. So now we have 4 vehicles for 4 staff, but the city doesn't budget for replacing that 4th vehicle. It's a surplus vehicle that is just kept in our fleet.
So you're saying it's cheaper to hang on to it than to dispose of it because it might improve efficiency of the employees?
Correct. So we make that analysis before we decide to sell the vehicle. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing is that as these trucks become obsolete,
Mhm.
we let them go, and we're not going to replace them because we have plenty of vehicles?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't, there's only, maintenance has one of those surplus vehicles, water has one of those surplus vehicles. I think there's only 2.
Okay, so we're getting rid of 3, but we're going to keep 2.
So we have 5 surplus vehicles, 3 of them are just, are being sold, and 2 of them are being kept.
Okay.
To
I
improve
guess my
efficiency
question
and
is from a business standpoint, what's the cost of carrying all these vehicles? I mean, especially like the surplus ones. You're making a good point. I'm not arguing with you on that
Oh.
case, but what's the cost of maintaining a vehicle in surplus? Nothing?
Well, no, because,
Insurance.
as they get older, they need, more repairs and things like that. And usually these vehicles are kept for maybe like an additional 3 or 4 years until another surplus one that's newer or in better
So-
shape will take its place, and then that one will be sold.
So
So it's-
is there a plan to recycle these, to remove these vehicles and replace them over time?
Oh, yeah.
Because you just suggested there was no plan for that. There was no replacement plan.
I think what
just the
he's saying is
surplus one.
that, there is a replacement schedule for
There's a
an
cycle.
amount, say 18 vehicles, and there's 2 or 3 more surplus that have not been disposed of. The vehicle policy says that you go through an analysis and a review before you dispose, and you consider whether the maintenance is too high for you to keep the vehicle and it's cheaper to dispose. Or if the maintenance is, if it's still a good vehicle, then staff can maintain it for another.
So what I'm
3
hearing
years.
is 18 vehicles seems to be the target.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have an exact number.
At the
I did-
minimum.
So,
wasn't prepared
am
for
I
that.
reading this chart right? Where it says maintenance division has a dump truck, water division has a dump truck, wastewater division has a dump truck.
No, it's supposed to indicate it's a shared piece of equipment. And so in the there's just one. So we have a flatbed truck, 2 flatbed trucks, and 1 like heavy dump truck. And the heavy dump truck is shared by multiple divisions and departments, and the one flatbed,
Would
the
it be-
large flatbed.
Would it be cheaper just to lease such a vehicle when you need it, as needed?
I'm not sure the answer to that. I think we did a few years back look at leasing, and most of the companies like Enterprise has a big fleet, leasing program, and it's not, they don't want to do it unless you have 25 vehicles or more. They kind of have
No, what I'm suggesting is, for
I
example.
think what he was saying was renting a vehicle when you need it.
That's a better term. I should
Yeah,
have
but
used the word
that's-
renting. So, for example, the International Harvester, I guess, I think that's what that is, the International. How often do you use it? It doesn't look like you use it very often. Why not just rent it when you need it?
That is a good point, and that could be done, but some of the pieces of equipment that we have are specifically for like major emergencies. And when you're in that situation, you can't really like go out and lease a vehicle.
Right. That's a good point.
It's so it is true, like the dump truck is a good example. It probably gets used once or twice a month.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting. In the oil fields, for example, there are big vendors that rent trucks on an as-needed basis, cranes, everything you can think of.
Sure.
So it just occurred to me, why not do that? But if you're telling me you can't,
Yeah, in the event of an emergency, to send somebody to go wherever, Santa Maria or down to Oxnard or something, to get a piece of equipment like this, and then to risk it not being available, it's. I think the city has in the past made the choice not to have that risk, and just bite the bullet and have the piece of equipment on hand as needed. So, yeah. But certainly that could be done, but I wouldn't really recommend it.
But I think the goal here is to just reduce the number of inventory, be as lean and mean as possible, and then to also get the trucks or the equipment parked on a lot that's in the non-prime parking spaces to kind of free up the space for tourism-type activities or the locals. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we're moving in that path. I think that's a good goal. And I think that's something that staff can continue doing at that level. So
Absolutely.
I'm not sure what kind of motion we're looking for here. To receive staff
To
report. Provide.
receive staff report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think you have the
Received.
goal. So do we need a motion on the goal?
No.
No. Okay.
I have to say this, though. My company, if you replace at 31 points, my company vehicle I've driven for the last 10 years is up to 84 points. And 31 means needs immediate attention.
All right. So on to item number 8. We need a
Item-
no motion for item number 7. Is that correct?
Item number 8, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, is the professional services agreement, parking lot number 5 in drainage improvement project, engineering services. I think Mr. Lindenberg will report again. Thank you. Lindenberg.
Vander Linden.
I just gave you a different name.
It's okay. All righty. So, the parking lot 5 and drainage improvement project includes, paving improvements for the parking lot. The project, as it currently stands, includes a solar carport structure. It also includes electrical vehicle charging stations. And you all may have heard there's like the older, slower charge charging units, and now they have these new high-capacity fast charging units. Those are more expensive, but we're proposing to have 2 of the fast charging units and then maybe 4 or 5 of the slower charging units. And then in addition to that, the project includes the drainage improvements. So the drainage improvements are actually phase 2 of the 2nd Street Drainage Improvement Project that we completed about a year and a half ago. And so that project includes upsizing the existing storm drain pipe coming down 2nd Street from Copenhagen to the intersection of 2nd and Oak here. And right now, that pipeline kind of zigzags through that dirt lot and just dumps out kind of in the far back southwest corner. And so with this project, we're going to include the city's first trash capture structure. So our NPDES permit with the state requires, as part of our permit, that we begin implementing trash capture in the high priority areas of the city. And since this storm drain system collects a lot of water from the commercial part of the city, that's considered a high priority area and an area that's more likely to have trash. So some of the outer residential areas, we do not have to implement trash capture, but in the commercial area we do. And so, so of course all that's going to be underground. And so the project includes doing all those storm drain improvements first, and then doing the paving project and putting in the EV charging stations and the solar carport. Also with the storm drain improvements, I don't know if any of you have ever kind of walked out over to that southwest corner of the dirt lot, but the outfall of that 2nd Street storm drain line is like terrible. It's just, the pipe just ends and there's concrete was just poured all around the end of the pipe and some rocks thrown in it, and it's allowed a little bit of downstream erosion because of the way it's all laid out. So we're going to fix that and put a new head wall and an energy dissipation structure to slow the water down so it's not as erosive as it's discharged out of the storm drain pipe. So that's all included in the project. But I think normally something like this would be on the consent agenda. It's fairly routine. We're implementing the City Council's previous directions. But I think there was some concern just to make sure that we are accurately following the City Council's direction and what exactly you want to see, that this be on the be pulled from the, or not on the consent agenda, but on the regular agenda. So if there's anything different that you want us to do from what I've just described, you know, we'd love to hear that from you at this point, and we can still award the contract and move forward and implement whatever modifications you'd like to make. And the little table here just shows kind of the breakdown, basically, of the parking lot improvements versus the drainage improvements. So you'll see for the design work for the drainage improvements, $80,000, and the construction for the drainage improvements about $420,000. So it's about $500,000 for those drainage improvements. Again, it's going to include this big trash capture structure and a new outfall.
And that also would help us with the stormwater management program, right?
Yeah, it's a requirement.
So it's something we need to do.
Yes, yeah, we do. And then it's just a rough breakdown of some of the costs of the other components of the parking lot.
So from a standpoint of priority, give me which one is the number one?
All.
No.
Well, it'd be drainage improvements.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to say.
The drainage improvements are absolute
Right.
number one, and then
And everything else could
then the
be
parking lot,
Right.
paving improvements and stuff. And then the next would be the charging stations. The two fast charging units, we are required by state law to transition the San Ynez Valley Transit fleet from the gas-powered vehicles to all electric buses. I believe that's by 2030. we have to have all the buses replaced. Maybe not, it might be, I think it's, yeah, it might be 2028, but anyway. So
we have some time on that one.
yeah, but there's more and more electric vehicles on the road, and so that's the idea why we'd want to do the charging stations. And you need to have the infrastructure in place before you can get the vehicles. So that's kind of.
So if you did the drainage, you would also do, when would you do the infrastructure for these charging stations? At the time you do the parking lot or the time you do the drainage?
Right now, what's proposed is it's all one big project to do it all.
Oh, yeah.
And then the only thing is the construction would just be obviously sequenced, but one right after the other, just all one big contract. But if you want to proceed with the design work for all of this, it's the $155,000, which is what's, in the staff report and everything. But when we go to, if you want, you can give us direction that, we'll have separate bid items for the EV charging, separate bid items for the solar carport, and we can have those as alternative or alternate bid items. And so if when we come back, a year from now or whatever or it'll be sooner than that, but with the bids and the award of the construction contract, you could tell us, okay, well, we don't want to spend that much money, let's delete the solar carport, or we don't want to, you can kind of, so the two main things you could delete if you wanted was the solar carport and the EV charging. So we could set up the construction documents so you can make a decision at that point if you don't want to.
And that doesn't require any additional engineering analysis?
The contract, it was our understanding that this was desired to have all that in this parking lot project. So the professional services agreement includes all the design for all this stuff. So
Which includes the charging?
That
and the carport
includes the design for all that.
For all, yeah.
So there might be some small savings there if we didn't do it. I guess I'd like to see that lot more for the city purposes as opposed to visitor purposes.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, it's basically 150,000 plus the 1.2 million for the total.
For a parking lot.
For a parking lot, that's about.
So I got a question, Matt. I'm looking at these.
It might be able to fit 3 transit buses on it.
It's just ridiculous, but.
It's a lot of it is the drainage improvements and kind of all the bells and whistles.
I think you have to do the drainage.
Well, my question is, we look at these, every time we come up here, and it seems like there's these engineering costs. So you're an engineer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you have engineers on staff.
Right.
I'm confused as to why we need to pay outside people to come in and give us an engineering for a parking lot. I'm pretty confident you and your staff could probably put together an engineering design, right? I mean,
certainly, I've done numerous parking lots actually, and for commercial centers and different things over the years. Based on our workload of everything else, I mean, there's a huge part of our job is actually just the day-to-day operations of the city. So there's a limited amount of time for us to do these things. We could do the parking lot design. We do have the expertise and the CAD expertise and all that to do that, but not the solar carport and the EV charging stations, and even some of the trash capture structure is kind of a new thing.
I understand that.
So it's kind of more a specialized thing, but it's mainly the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and the staff resources that we don't have to.
So we could hire more staff if you like.
And if I could just from a policy perspective here also, do you definitely want to build a parking lot there? Do you want to go through the economic development and looking at the land use first and decide whether that's where you definitely want to have a parking lot?
So my last question is, regardless of what the council decides to do with that lot, the drainage improvements that would be done there is independent of that.
That's my understanding too.
Yeah, that's correct. So we for sure need to do the trash capture portion, and the outfall of the existing system is horrible. I mean, you just walk over there and look at it, it's like it's a total, I don't know who did it, but anyway. And we finished phase 1 of the of this Second
Storm-
Street drainage project.
Right.
So basically what we're doing is, based on past studies, this was one of the worst locations identified for flooding in the city. And so we've addressed part of the problem, but, which was up by Mission Drive and, King Frederick
Lot number 2.
Hotel and all that. Yeah, and through lot 2 and everything. But this is the second phase of it to bring it down. So,
And when would you be
if-
doing this, if you were to do it? The drainage issue? I mean, when would you repair the drainage system?
the construction of it?
Right.
So the engineering services, I believe their schedule is about 8 to 9 months, and then we'd go out to bid, which is approximately a month, and then take it back to city council for.
A year from now,
So within
basically?
a year from now, yeah, we'd be back here with bids and a construction contract for your consideration toward.
Okay.
I have a question. Matt, what impact do you see, any adverse impact on the neighbors and the people that whose homes are right around there?
Oh, from this project?
Uh-huh.
I think it's gonna be a big improvement, because right now, it's the dirt lot, and every time they turn around, there's dust flying everywhere. So we're gonna eliminate the dust problem.
And it's not gonna be all city cars that'll be parked on that, right?
It's up to the city council. At this point, it was considered to be just another public parking lot for the city, but there could be some spaces designated for exclusive city use, or however you want to, that's
Yeah.
totally
I
open
just
to-
don't want to see it impacting the homes that are right around that in any adverse way, okay?
Yeah, and the improvements to the outfall are really going to actually protect those properties,
Okay,
because there's some kind of bad erosion there right now.
Good, thank
So
you.
it's going to be an improvement for
If
them.
you were to do only the drainage improvements, that would be $500,000, right?
Correct, that is exactly correct.
And you could throw some kind of aggregate down, I don't know, fine material
Yeah.
that doesn't
Yeah, we
kick
could
up
put some,
dust.
we could put some road base
And
down.
be
So-
done with it if-
Yeah, that's what I'm
worst
getting
case.
at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think maybe there's 2 phases to this.
Mhm.
So, yeah, certainly it can be done like that, exactly.
I like
And,
that
and the
idea.
drainage improvements, so we didn't own this lot until, 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's been about
So did
3
we
years
buy
now.
the lot to inherit the drainage improvements that we need
Yes,
to do?
that's exactly right.
Well,
We paid top
If
dollar
we,
for
if
it,
we
too.
didn't own the lot,
Smart move for somebody.
no, we still have to do all those drainage improvements whether we own the lot or not. Right now, before we bought the lot,
on
the
someone
city-
else's private property, we would need to do or is it because there's an easement or something?
Yeah, exactly. So right now, before we purchased the lot, the city had an easement, a storm drain easement through the private property, and the city's public storm drain line runs through the, used to run through the private owned lot.
Can you imagine if
Now
somebody had built a
owns
house on that?
The city's lot. So, yes, so we would have had to do the drainage improvements either way.
Okay.
And, yeah, whether we owned it or not. But I will say, we'll need you to let us know if you're thinking about some alternate use of that in the future, because that'll affect how we route the storm drain pipe. Because we can move the pipe to the side rather than just like through the middle or whatever, you know what I mean? So it could be buildable in the future, if you thought,
We're going to do something.
yeah. But so
That
we
does
would-
make a
I
lot
think-
of sense.
From my standpoint, the issue I have is we've already spent, I think the lot was bought 2 years ago or something like that. It's already
Yeah.
about $500,000
Yeah.
that was paid for that. And now we're looking at, the engineering costs, which are kind of blowing me away for the size of the lot. And then the 1.2 over here. So this is like a $2.3 million parking lot that, quite frankly, is like some standard lot size for a residential home. Anyway,
So that,
I understand.
Any more questions? Let's bring it back to the council.
It's not- I'm just saying that-
$500,000 and building another house, you're just giving $1 million house.
No, I'm
back.
just I'm trying to give a comparison to the size lot. It's
Understood.
very small. I would think that we'd be getting a little more bang for a buck, and I think that we can do a lot more with $2.3 million for the city than than this. So, is there a way? I understand that we have to do the drainage improvements. We have that easement. Okay, so that has to get done.
If you want to do like a bare bones project and just do
Right.
the drainage improvements and you know, skip the solar charging for now, skip the EV charging for now.
I mean, the way I see it, the most disrespectful thing to the neighbors right now is the tarps and this and all this other stuff that's, you know, hanging on over there. I mean, it looks awful.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm glad that that's being addressed today. But, and we just had the city vehicle replacement policy. We're trying to reduce the numbers there. We have this lot that's now here that we've purchased. I understand we have to do the storm drain, but for just parking, some extra things there to open up the more prime parking in the city, do we need to even go through all the engineering and paving and all this other stuff there for
No, we could,
some very basic
if you want to do
uses?
the absolute bare bones that I would, you know, recommend, if you're going to want to go bare bones, proceed with the drainage improvements and then direct staff to design the parking lot.
I like
bare
that.
bones.
And then it's no hiring an engineering firm to do anything
Well,
besides.
yeah, we need
Besides
them
the
to do the
drainage.
drainage improvements.
Besides
Yeah.
So staff can't do the drainage improvements.
Correct.
Not really, I mean, because the trash capture structure being, it's all new and there's a lot of expertise involved in that, plus the time.
But doing the drainage improvements to allow ourselves to go a different direction in the future, I think makes sense.
That's what I was getting at. Is there additional cost to rerouting the drains, as you said?
No,
Then,
yeah,
then I think we should
yeah,
do
they haven't done
just
the
right, the
design yet,
drainage right
so,
now.
yeah.
Right.
And then
with the
throwing down
thought-
some kind
We
of.
may put a hotel on that someday. We may.
And what about the
do
cost
something
of
else.
throwing down some, I don't know what they call that, it's a little pea,
Diatomaceous earth, gravel.
Yeah, pea gravel or.
it's like pea
or-
gravel,
or-
right?
Or road base or
To
whatever,
prevent
yeah.
the dust from kicking up, so
Yeah.
is that baked into the $500,000?
No.
No.
Completely.
How much would that be?
Just,
Well, it's $16 a bag, covers 2/3.
I think what we need to do
of a
is
foot.
bring it back to council.
So I'm
and
asking him
discuss
to
it.
look into that, because that may be the cheapest and shortest approach.
Just give us a lot, Matt. Give us a lot.
I think that's
Yeah,
the cheapest way to
yeah,
go.
for $20,000, we can get a contractor to spread road base over the whole thing.
So you're looking at
and-
five and a quarter tops.
Make
Yeah,
motion.
something like that, yeah. That's about right.
So any other
Good with
questions
that.
of Matt?
I think the only cool thing that I thought that could happen along there is, you know, there's, on the sides that have neighbors, there is just some shrubs and whatever planted along there that just helps, you know, shield it and make it more aesthetic. Is there any sense in just planting some shrubs along the sidewalk area that faces the fire department? Because
plant some
I think
trees.
that would really.
And the house to the
You
the
know.
south.
Let's go big. Let's put landscaping in.
Oh, we can certainly easily
And
plant
charging
some
stations, yeah.
shrubs anywhere. I will say, if you walk out there, it's a little deceptive, because you stand here and you look across, you don't realize that the back, that the southwest corner, about 15% of the lot drops off. And so part of this cost and part of the design is a retaining wall in that southwest
Oh,
corner.
that makes sense.
Because it drops off like about, probably about 4 feet along the property line, you know? And so so all the dirt we excavate from the new storm drain, we're gonna keep that, and that'll be filled in, but you need a retaining wall in that corner to make the whole lot level.
Right.
And
that's all gonna happen regardless. That's the drainage improvements project, right?
No, the drainage improvement doesn't include that. I mean, we'll have this dirt, but, I mean, we could make it include that.
Okay,
But-
there we go.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think what we need to do is bring it back and decide what we want to do, and
But,
then give
I-
a direction.
actually,
as
I
to
love
what
this
we want.
idea.
One other little thing. So, you know, Oak Street's super busy, right? And this intersection's really busy right out in front of here. So, unfortunately, just before I started working at the city, a contract was awarded, and that driveway went in where it is on Oak, the driveway into that lot. So part of this project is to get rid of that driveway there.
On Second Street.
Because it's like right, you know, you're trying to get in and out of there, and there's cars all coming from, you know, so move it here across from the, you know, fire station, and that will dramatically improve traffic. Because, I mean, imagine this parking lot and people coming in and out right there, and now if you start using it more heavily for city or public parking, it's a terrible spot where the driveway is now. So we were planning to move it around. So to remove that, put back curb and gutter and redo the, you know, sidewalk, and then put one over there, that's about $25,000 also.
And would the fire department be okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's driveways all.
So I kind of like the idea. I mean, we have to do the drainage improvements regardless. I think the only thing this council wants is just the bare minimum and, you know, some gravel down and we
Okay.
can park, you know.
So for 500, direct staff to proceed and award a contract just for the drainage improvements.
Okay.
And then we'll put down gravel and relocate the driveway.
Are you making a motion?
And then, can we still look into some, you know, some kind of shrub or something along the sidewalk that?
Mayor Toussaint, for you, will absolutely do.
Perfect. I'll move that.
What he said.
What he said.
Yes, of course we can do that, of course. That's super minor.
So that would be phase one, and
Absolutely.
phase two would be everything else
Go
later.
ahead and say it.
I so move.
Okay.
I se-
second.
Okay, go ahead.
It's been seconded by
Mayor
Robert
Pro-
Clark.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Diarnes,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes.
That motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Item number 9, municipal code recodification project.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm happy to report that this item is a sort of carryover item from December the 9th, where at that time, I don't know if you recall, the city attorney and I provided a laundry list of items that were deficient with the municipal code, and in so doing, we went out and solicited proposals from 3 codifiers. We provided them with the information regarding what was wrong with the code, and I think I don't want to go through a whole spiel about that, but we noted sections that did not exist are not cross-referenced. We noticed also titles that have the incorrect name to them, particularly I believe Title 14, where it's a planning subject matter, when in fact it's actually noted as emergency management. Another deficiency that we noted with the code, as the city attorney mentioned, December the 9th, was the fact that the charter was not even codified or included into the municipal code. And so we want to do a cleanup, and the cleanup will include a recodification of the code, which has not been done since 2001, meaning that 19 years ago, our code is 19 years old, and it needs to be reformatted. I also wanted to point out that in doing the research, and I will make this clear for the record, the companies that you have in front of you, which I have provided the proposals for, are all really good companies. They all can do the work that we want them to do with respect to, you know, the online posting and other things that the city wants to proceed with. However, there's one codifier that provided the shortest time frame, and I know this is an issue with the council's desire to have a code that's, you know, to move forward. And I know the city manager was concerned with respect to why does it take 12 months for the code to be recodified and so forth and so on. So we found explanations for all of the timelines, and one codifier promised us a time frame that's between 6 and 8 months, which is the shortest one. The other companies offer 12 months and 9 months to be more specific. The cost of the proposal ranges between $9,200 to approximately $11,500 or $200, and somewhere in the middle. And the company that I have recommended on a collective decision between the city manager and the city attorney and I is to move forward with the one company that we recommended for a number of reasons, primarily because after having looked at the work product that they have provided for the other cities, they have to me, the best technology with respect to archiving, searching the code, and more importantly, I think we need to look at it, what's in the best interest of the user, the people that will use it, whether it's a consultant or anybody at home. And I think this is the best product to have for the city. It meets the needs of the city currently. Furthermore, it meets the needs of the project. One thing that I also emphasize to all the companies is that we're not looking for just someone to do work for us. We're looking for someone with whom we can build a long-term relationship, because municipal codes, don't get updated or recodified every 5-10 years. This is a long-term engagement because from now on they will be providing not only the recodification but also the supplementation. Whenever we have new ordinances, they will be included in the municipal code and we'll keep it current. I don't know if our city attorney has anything to add, but I think we were clear with respect to what we wanted and how we wanted it to be done, and we will make sure that is the case with respect to the success of the project. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So I just like to, I mean, there's been a lot of inconsistencies that have been brought up over the past few months, and so I just want to make sure, I mean, I would just presume this, but Chip will be working our city attorney will be working very closely with you to make sure that all that, the items that we've at least noticed so far get recodified, and then hopefully, I don't know how did the prior vendor just not update things for so long? Is that just a complacency thing? And
I think it wasn't a matter of updating. It was a matter that they, I don't know much about the company, but interestingly enough, I learned that they had sold their the client list to another vendor, and so the vendor says, I'm now your codifier, and so they didn't even notify us formally that the relationship had ended. Furthermore, I'm not speaking from what happened in the past, but as the city attorney mentioned, something as simple as sending the charter to the codifier so that can be included in one of the sections or chapters in the municipal code was a huge oversight. And there are a number of other deficiencies that we have noted with respect to how the structure of the code is currently in place, and so we want to correct that. Furthermore, moving forward, I know we're speaking about whether we want to recreate or formally codify the BAR. So all of that would be done by way of an ordinance, which in turn will be codified formally, just like we've done with Parks Commission, with the Planning Commission, and others. So we will have a more structured and cleaner municipal code that we can use as an easy reference.
Mr. Mayor, can I make the shorter answer, which is somebody here at the city actually has to be in charge of sending stuff to the codifier, and that's an essential link that fell apart.
okay. Are there any questions of the staff report?
No, but Daryl, great job. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Daryl. We'll go to public comment. There's now no one in the room. Hi, Matt.
Way to blow it.
Way to We'll take this back to the council for discussion action. I think it's pretty cut and dry. I'll move the staff recommendation, approve the budget adjustment.
I'll second
It's
that.
been seconded.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Diarnes,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
As a matter of formality, did I
No.
skip public comment
Yes, you did.
last?
Oh.
So the,
No. Yes.
no, and I'm addressing that now, but I just, on the prior item,
I believe you did open for
did we
public
did do
comment.
public, okay, for some reason in my head I just couldn't
You just
remember.
made a comment, there was nobody here.
Okay,
Right, I have noted it so.
perfect. And then, so now we'll make the motion, I'll make the motion that we continue the meeting.
I'll second it.
It's been seconded.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
No.
Councilmember Diarnes,
No.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-2. Thank you. We'll continue the meeting.
I got nervous.
What was that about?
It was fun.
It was, okay, it's fun to say no, just to say no. Okay, got it.
I could have gone home.
All right, so on to item number 10, city manager, council direction, and the next steps. Staff report?
Mr. Mayor, I believe this is your report.
It'd be kind of hard for you to give this report.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Zena is formerly the acting city manager, and I think it's now been about
Close to 6 months.
close to 6 months. At some point, this council needs to decide what we want to do next. It was my understanding, and I'll let the attorney expand on this, that the prior recruiting firm technically would owe us another recruitment under their contract. If the city manager that they helped us recruit doesn't work out within the first 12 months, they owe us another recruitment. In the meantime, this council's also had about 6 months to work with Zena as acting city manager. I believe that Zena is interested in becoming the city manager. So it's really up to this council on how they would like to move forward with that. I would obviously want to just confirm that with the city attorney as number one. And then number two, Zena, if you're interested, please express that. And then we got to deliberate and find out, what do we want to do next.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, yeah, the contract that you had with the former recruiter has a provision that if the city manager that they brought to you resigns or is terminated within 12 months, then they provide you with another recruitment, and all you pay is you pay what they called their costs. Last time around, those costs or expenses of the actual recruitment process were about $7,500 of the about $25,000 that you paid to that particular recruiting firm. I would suggest that if you want to use that recruiting firm and get the benefit of that limited cost recruitment, that you do that within the 12-month period since the time that they recruited Mr. Gassaway, and that's coming up pretty much about now. I think there would be an argument if you waited past the 12-month period from the recruitment to then request that they do another recruitment. I think that they might say that they don't have that obligation. And again, I think you could simply authorize the mayor to negotiate and bring back, probably in closed session, bring back a recommended agreement with Ms. Bradford if that's what you want to do.
Are there any questions of the staff report? Seeing none, we'll go to public comment. Again, there's no one in the room. We'll take this back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
Again, it's just my opinion. I don't want us to get in trouble with not pursuing, or putting out, opening up this bid again. With that said, I'm as happy as can be that we have Ms. Bradford here working with the council, working with our goals. I think there's a good relationship here. I think that we work well together. I want to do things the right way, but I sure would like it if we could keep going forward and working with Zena, because I'm very, very happy with her.
Okay. Anyone else?
Are we obligated to continue to use that recruiter?
No. You are not obligated to do a recruitment at all. You're certainly not obligated to use that particular recruiter. So your choices could be, again, to negotiate an agreement, or see if you can negotiate an agreement, because you may not be able to, or you could direct us to go find a new recruiter.
Or we
Chris?
don't have.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
No, sorry, go.
Yeah, we don't have to use a recruiter.
You
don't
don't
have
have,
to.
you don't have to.
We're not obligated for an RFP.
Right. Okay,
No.
that's what I wanted to make clear, because my concern is the same as Robert's.
Yeah,
That
you
we're
have
not
no obligation to do an open recruitment or do an RFP. You have no obligation to use this recruiter. I think my recommendation is that if you all wanted to use this recruiter, I would let them know right now that you want to use them. If you don't want to, I think that it would be good to let us know that you don't want to use this recruiter to do a new recruitment, and then direct what you would like to do.
I would like you to tell them, no, we don't want to use them again.
I would agree with that.
I think,
Because the pool of 5 was not right.
well, that's to say the least. The fact that they didn't do their due diligence on Mr. Gassaway's resume speaks volumes about them.
I would affirm that you,
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that you not go into any issues related
Confidentiality.
to anyone who worked for you other than the recruiter.
Yeah.
I still stand by my statement about the recruiter.
Okay.
I think they failed. At the very least, if we go down this road again, we need to do somebody else. But at this point, I'm very happy working with Zena, and I hope that we can come to some arrangement with her. And if that doesn't work out, then I guess we move on to Plan B.
I agree.
Daniel?
I'll make a motion that we authorize the mayor and city attorney to formally offer the position to Xenia and work out possibly have the closed session and work out the contract details.
Okay.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Diarnes,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yeah.
Mayor Tucson.
Yes.
That motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I didn't see it in a crystal ball when I came back to Solvang, and 10 years later that I would be acting city manager. But it's been fun to work outside the box and working with the council.
And we're getting work done.
Be careful what you wish for, Zena.
Yeah.
And Zena actually wanted to be a city manager, and she applied into it, was never afforded an interview.
Actually, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm happy.
on to item number 11, Mayor's Advisory Committee. So with this item here, I've received several requests from the community about some form of committee, or people want to do their service, they want to be a part of things. I've thought about this for a while. We have also someone that is taking political science in college right now, and they would like to do some form of intern ship with the city.
My daughter?
It might have been your daughter. No.
Wow.
Maybe your daughter also wants to intern.
wasn't
No, it
being
was not your
silly.
daughter. So there are people that are interested in getting involved, and I think that that's really important as you develop leadership in the community and get people involved in local government and things like that. So I think we have some opportunities there. There's a lot of items that potentially could be handled by a mayor's committee that would review future advanced calendar items, make recommendations on future items that that should come up, allow more development of items before they come before the council. So that might help with some of the staff reports. So it's just kind of a community engagement item, as well as if we have an internship, obviously I think that person would need to go through some process at the city level to be vetted and things like that. But it'd be also a good thing, so it'd be able to, anyone would be able to learn about the Brown Act and all the compliance type things and understand how.
So would
how
this
things
be
work.
like a permanent ad hoc committee or standing committee?
This would be more of probably a standing committee, right?
So it would have to be publicly noticed?
Mm-hmm.
This is another be careful what you wish for.
Mr. Mayor, I would urge that, yes, this be both publicly noticed and that it comply with the Brown Act.
Yeah.
But
So-
what I'm hearing is the council does not have to take the recommendations of this committee.
No. Oh, no. Yeah. Not binding, nothing.
Yeah, this is, well, wait, go ahead.
No, this is the time to speak. I mean,
No, to me, it's like, I like the idea, but it's also a huge can of worms.
that's what I'm thinking too.
And it just makes me nervous. Because that's what our job is. You know?
I agree with you. I'd love to have my own committee helping me with economic, development.
Mhm.
But that's not going to happen. I can barely get the mayor to sit and babysit me.
No one can.
No. I don't think anyone wants to babysit you, Chris.
Well, I'm not. The point I'm making is, if you're going, there's no reason why we can't do that now. I mean, we don't have to have a standing committee to ask for help from the community.
Well,
You can-
basically, this is the standing committee every other Monday night.
Well, not really. I appreciate what you're saying.
If you want to do the work, I'm as happy as can be to have this done.
Well, I think the idea of developing ideas in a public forum may actually be a good way to do it. And this is not the place to do it. Unfortunately,
I
the people who
understand.
come here, they don't get it. This is about trying to deal with the operations of the city, not to develop policy per se. We don't have the time to do it in this kind of a setting.
Yeah.
But essentially what he's
I don't want
talking
this to
about.
be combative and argumentative.
He's talking about creating workshops, which you really don't like.
Some of this comes from, that demand. So, again, it's something that can be tried and always,
I
done
think
away
it'd be
with.
neat to
So-
have 15 residents.
But that doesn't mean you have to have appointed people. I mean, you just, like you said, go ahead and tell the community that every month you're going to meet and discuss these things, and whoever shows up, shows up.
One way to do it.
I feel that you being the mayor, this is your job anyway, to reach out to the community and get input. I mean, similar to us as council members, we hear input from the community, and Robert has a point that our council meetings are the time for people to throw their ideas at us in public speaking. One of the problems I see with this is the appointment of your committee members by you. I just think that it's more transparent and would engage the community more just to expand your job as mayor and just be out there in the community more.
Which he already is.
Yeah, so that's why I don't see.
Or you could have
Or you
town, why not have town hall meetings once a month?
Or take 30 names and pick 15 out of a hat, so you're not picking favorites.
That's my concern.
So I think some of this
Part
has
of my
come.
concern.
I think some of this has come because he's, at least from what I'm understanding from the report, is he's been approached by individuals wanting to get involved.
And they still can.
So, right. So what I'm saying is, I think this committee is trying to give the opportunity to those individuals to be involved. So maybe there's another way to do that that doesn't consist of forming this formal committee. I don't know.
Do you like this idea, Ryan?
I'm fine with it at a low frequency. I think in here I was suggesting a quarterly type thing. Again, I'm just responding to requests from the community, and I'm willing to do, again, a little extra work.
And I can
am
help with it, but I don't want to
pretty tapped
overburden
out.
you. Exactly. And you meet with enough. We all of us get enough input from residents weekly via email, office visits, etc. If you want to do this quarterly, then I support you.
Okay.
I don't support formalizing it and your appointment of the committee members.
Could we all vote on it? If there were, are we going to find 15 people that want to meet quarterly with the mayor?
I don't see why.
In a constructive manner.
I don't see why this is necessary.
I am having a hard time seeing that too.
Mr. Mayor, if I could say, I think you could, if it's just a group that you are meeting with and listening to, and it's an informal group that meets 4 times a year, you could do that and not have to have it be a formalized Brown Act committee. The Brown Act issue and the formalization is going to come when this is a committee which is advisory to the council, as opposed to just something that the mayor meets with periodically.
Right. I think the design of this was just more transparent in the people that are doing that.
And I appreciate
If I may,
that's-
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yeah.
just while I'm listening to the conversation, and I think one thing we need to consider, while it may be a worth idea pursuing, be mindful too that that's going to create another Brown Act meeting that's going to create more agendas, more notifications, more work for staff, and there's only one person in the city clerk's office. So just consider what we're being asked to do.
Right. So I think what the city attorney just said, that there's an option to have it not as a Brown Act body, it's just the mayor's committee, and if somebody wants to be more closely involved with the city through an internship program, we can do that
Right.
through pretty minimal, as long as it's not a paid position, that's a pretty minimal, background
Effort on your
check.
part. Yeah.
And again, this item's just coming to be very transparent with what the requests are coming in. And yeah, we do have someone that's interested in, doing some, form of internship or something. But I think that is something that, should be run through at the staff level, if that, but I'm just making the council aware of it.
Will you have workshops?
I think you just said you don't want to have workshops, so.
I'm harassing you. I'm teasing you. I think we need special meetings to study these more. For example, the Lot 72 issue tonight was challenging because I don't think we were all as well informed as we'd like to be, in terms of background and things like that. But maybe that could have been handled better in a mayor's advisory committee before, and then bring it to us after that.
Well, an item like, for example, Lot 72 could have gone to the mayor's advisory committee, and the public could have been aware of that well before it ever came on the advanced calendar, and we could have had a far more developed staff report.
We could have had more constructive engagement, I think.
Yeah, so that's just an example of how that could work.
And
Again,
it still can.
this isn't like a huge issue of mine. I'm just responding to, some requests from the community. And if the council wants it, great. If not, no big deal. But that's just an example of how something like that could be, fleshed out with a little bit more public engagement.
Mr. Mayor, again, from what I'm hearing from the council, it sounds like you all would be fine with this on a more for the mayor informal basis, and you can certainly do that.
Perfect. So then we'll just leave it at that, and then we'll put we'll have the interim follow up with Zena. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay. So no motion needed on that item. We have now item number 12, AB 1234 report out, council comments and requests. Have we had any events paid for by the city that the council's attended? I'm only aware of events coming up, the State of the City and the Mobile Smart City Conference in March.
Yes. March
Okay.
20.
March 22nd, Mayor, through March 24th, which will coincide with the meeting of March 23rd. And so that item was on the consent agenda for the council to move it to Monday, the 30th of March, rather than the 23rd, so that some of you who choose to go will be able to do that.
Okay. Council comments. Who'd like to start? No comments, Chris? Karen?
I'd like to go to the conference, so I'd like to move the meeting to the 30th.
Yeah, it was on the consent agenda,
It's
so that's
been
already
done.
done.
Been done. Just a reminder.
Well, thanks for reminding me.
Karen?
Yeah, I'm speaking at the Women in Government Forum up at Allen Hancock College on Thursday morning from 9 to 12.
Robert? Daniel?
Just to revisit a couple topics, I'm not sure I saw them on the advanced agenda. The possibility of the speed humps around the school was one thing. I've also been approached by some citizens regarding Elks Field, which is the big dirt field now up next to the Solvang School. And the middle school, they're talking about what we can do with that development-wise, redoing it, who could cover the cost of maintaining it, stuff like that, just so that you're aware that's being discussed. The other issue that maybe we could get on the agenda is the possibility of moving the farmers market so it's not in the same place every Wednesday. I don't know. I thought we discussed that before, but I haven't seen it on the advanced calendar or an agenda or anything like that. Those are a couple of things. And then the last one is, I know Solvang School, actually my wife has been working with some faculty at Solvang School regarding it's a BAD campaign, Be Above Drugs. So just so you're aware that that's kind of going on, and the Vikings Club and the Sheriff's Department have actually donated money to that, so that may be coming before the council, possibly as a presentation, I don't know. But I just wanted to make everyone aware that that type of stuff's going on.
Okay.
And that's it.
Perfect. Appreciate knowing that there's people in the community trying to address the Elks Field up there. The only question I'd have with that is
It'll be
Yeah.
coming. I'm actually been speaking with an individual that I've.
and would that be an item that
Here.
Daniel and I would be in conflict on?
Possibly.
We have to look at the. Well, we're on Laurel. I'm trying to remember how far you have. So we have to
500
just double
feet.
check that before.
It's definitely in your area.
Yeah, no, it's in our area. I just don't
500
know if it's
feet.
in the 500 or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an individual that's working with the school and with some other individuals to come back and possibly present some stuff and talk to us about it. So, but we'll see what happens. I just wanted everyone to be aware that that's
Okay.
been a topic.
But what do we
I've been
do with all the
approached.
gophers?
It's a good question. They're going to talk about that.
Chip, did you have something?
Just that if you kill all the golfers, you'll probably go to jail.
Oh.
Oh, come on.
My only comments, I'll keep this short because I know it's late and we want to get out of here. But I believe that we've now received some kind of bid about the council chambers, and I think we originally had a pretty relatively small budget for it compared to what we just received. I'd just like to ask Zena to expand on that, and is there something we need to put on the next agenda to discuss, or?
So I had it for March 9th agenda on the advanced calendar to bring back recommendations for IT overall. For specifically the chamber, we could speed it up to the next agenda and look at that specific item. I've had a much lower quote for that type of services before, but we haven't issued, a formal bid. So frankly, the two quotes are not the same services that we would receive. So I would suggest that by next agenda item, we could do some competitive bidding with 3 firms with a specific scope of work that we need to receive and see where we are and bring that to the council.
Okay. My only concern there is, I know it's working now, but we went through quite the period there where, the video equipment kept failing on us. So I just want to make sure we don't fall into that pattern and then waiting to go out and, try to get someone to fix it or replace it with the next thing. So.
Right. It's also not standard equipment. It's very specific,
One
one of a kind, built for us. So
Perfect.
So you'll put an RFP out for that and bring that to the council next?
I'll do the 3
okay.
3 bids.
Perfect.
to
And bring that
start.
back. All right. With that, I think we're adjourned. Thank you.